The Coven didn't check the calendar. That was their first mistake. They saw a frightened girl in a torn dress, smelling of terror and rain. They saw a runt, a nobody, a human disposable enough to be thrown into the pit to appease the monster that lived beneath the city. They were so focused on their own cruelty, on the political maneuvering of who would survive the night, that they forgot to look at the sky. They forgot that tonight wasn't just a full moon, it was a blood moon. And according to the dusty book I'd stolen from Rodrigo's private library 3 months ago, the laws of the tribute changed tonight. On any other night, I was meat. I was a snack to keep the king sated so he wouldn't hunt them. But tonight, the marriage of bone law was active. Tonight, the tribute wasn't a victim, she was a petitioner. I stood at the edge of the abyss, my toes curling over the cold stone. Rodrigo was behind me, his hand heavy on my shoulder, his sharp nails digging into my skin. He thought I was shaking from fear. I was shaking from adrenaline. "Go to him, little waste," Rodrigo whispered, his voice like dry leaves skittering on pavement. "Feed our king so we may live." He shoved me. I didn't scream as I fell into the dark. I didn't beg. I just clenched my jaw and prepared to do the one thing no human had ever done in the history of the tribute. I was going to give the Vampire King an order. I hit the ground hard. Stone, cold, damp, and smelling of something metallic that I knew instinctively was centuries of dried blood. My ankle twisted, sending a white-hot spike of pain up my leg, but I bit the inside of my cheek to keep silent. Silence was the first rule of survival in the Coven. Above me, the circle of light, the opening of the pit, was a distant, mocking eye. I could hear them up there, the laughter, the clinking of glasses. The Coven was celebrating. They thought they were safe for another decade. They thought they'd bought their peace with the life of Allyssa, the orphan, the cleaner, the girl who scrubbed the blood off their floors after their feasts. I stood up, testing my weight on my bad ankle. It held. Barely. "Hello," I whispered. The darkness didn't answer. It breathed. The air down here was different. It was heavy, pressurized, like being at the bottom of the ocean. It tasted of ozone and iron and something sweet like rotting flowers. "I know you're there," I said, my voice trembling despite my best efforts. "I know who you are." A laugh. It didn't come from a direction. It came from everywhere, vibrating in my teeth, humming in my bones. It was a sound that hadn't been made by a human throat in a very long time. "Do you?" the voice asked. It was deep, velvet-trapped gravel. "You are the tribute. You are the meal. Do meals usually speak to the diner before they are consumed?" 2 lights appeared in the dark. Not lights. Eyes, glowing with a faint, predatory luminescence. Red, deep, burning crimson, like embers dying in a fire. They were 7 feet off the ground. He was massive. Panic flared in my chest, primal and overwhelming. My lizard brain screamed, "Run, prey, run." But my human brain, the brain that had memorized the Codex Sanguinis cover to cover, held firm. "I am Allyssa," I said, "and I am not your meal. You are in my pit," the voice said, closer now. I could hear the rustle of heavy fabric. A coat, a cape. "You were thrown here by Rodrigo. That makes you mine, to keep, to bleed, to break." He stepped into the shaft of moonlight that fell from the opening above. Vincenzo, the king of the undead, the first vampire, the monster parents threatened their children with. He was terrifyingly beautiful. That was the unfairness of it. He should have been a rotting corpse. Instead, he was marble-pale skin stretched over high cheekbones, jet-black hair falling into eyes that burned with ancient boredom. He wore a suit that looked Victorian but fitted with modern precision, torn at the cuffs, stained with something dark. He looked at me the way I looked at a sandwich. "You smell of fear," he said, taking another step. The temperature in the pit dropped 10 degrees. "It's delicious. Spice on the meat." "Check the date," I said. He paused. His head tilted to the side, a bird-like inhuman movement. "What?" "Check the sky," I said, pointing up at the opening where the moon hung, heavy and swollen and unmistakably rusted red. "Tell me what you see, Vincenzo." His eyes narrowed. He looked up. For a second, nothing happened. Then I saw his pupils dilate. I saw the arrogance drain out of his posture, replaced by a sudden, rigid tension. He looked back at me, and for the first time he didn't look hungry. He looked shocked. "The blood moon," he whispered. The words sounded like a curse. "The marriage of bone," I corrected him, my voice gaining strength. Section 4, paragraph 2 of the Sanguine Compact. "On the night of the Bleeding Star, the tribute offered is not a sacrifice, but a petitioner." I took a step toward him. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Every instinct screamed that I was walking into a woodchipper. I am not your meal, Vincenzo, I said. I am your claimant. If you love stories where the prey turns the tables on the predator, make sure you subscribe to join our coven. We tell the dark tales that others are too afraid to whisper. Now, watch what happens when a human traps a monster. 3 hours earlier. Stand still, Rodrigo snapped, jerking my hair to pull my head back. I hissed in pain but didn't move. I was standing in the center of the grand hall, surrounded by the 12 members of the Coven High Council. They were all dressed in their finery, velvet, silk, jewels that glittered under the chandeliers. They looked like royalty. They smelled like rot covered in expensive perfume. Rodrigo, the Coven leader, was inspecting me like I was livestock at an auction. He pinched my arm, frowning at the lack of meat. She's thin, Dorian said from the sidelines, swirling a glass of what I pretended was wine. The king prefers them substantial. The king takes what he is given, Rodrigo spat, releasing me. We don't have anyone else. The harvest was poor this month. Too many hunters sniffing around the city. We can't risk snatching a tourist, so we send the cleaner. Dorian laughed. He'll be insulted. He might come up here and complain. If he comes up here, Rodrigo said, turning his cold, dead eyes on me, it will be because he is still hungry, which means Allyssa here didn't do her job. He smiled. It was a facial expression he hadn't practiced enough. It looked like a crack in a porcelain mask. You understand your purpose, don't you, my dear? I looked at the floor. Yes, Master Rodrigo, to serve, he said, to sustain, to ensure the survival of your betters, my betters. I wanted to laugh. I'd spent 5 years in this house. I knew them. I knew that Dorian was afraid of the dark. I knew that Christie cried in her sleep about the children she'd eaten. I knew that Rodrigo was so terrified of the king beneath the city that he pissed himself every time the floorboards creaked too loudly. They weren't my betters. They were parasites. Weak, scared parasites who bullied humans to feel strong because they knew deep down they were just pets to the real monster in the basement. I understand, I said. Good. Rodrigo gestured to 2 guards. Take her to the prep room. Wash her. Send her. Don't bother feeding her. It's a waste of resources. The guards grabbed my arms. I didn't fight. Fighting was for people who had muscles and weapons. I had neither. I had a brain and I had a secret. As they dragged me out of the hall, I caught Dorian's eye. He winked at me, a cruel, mocking gesture. Enjoy the pit, Allyssa, his eyes said. Enjoy your last night of peace, Dorian, I thought back. Because they hadn't checked the calendar. I had. I'd been counting the days for 3 years, ever since I found the codex while dusting the library, ever since I translated the section on the Blood Moon tribute. It only happened once every 50 years, a rare alignment of lunar cycle and stellar positioning that the ancient vampires, the ones who wrote the laws, considered sacred, the marriage of bone. It was a safety valve, a way for the universe to balance the scales. On that one night, the prey had power. On that one night, the king was bound. I let the guards drag me down the corridor. I let them shove me into the prep room. I let them scrub my skin raw with cold water and dress me in a flimsy white shift that offered no protection against the cold. I was terrified. Of course I was. I was 22 years old, human, and about to be thrown into a hole with a creature that ate people like popcorn. But terror is a funny thing. If you push it far enough, past the point of panic, past the point of despair, it turns into something else. It turns into clarity. I looked at myself in the cracked mirror of the prep room, pale face, wide, dark eyes, brown hair hanging in wet strands. I looked like a victim. Good, I whispered to my reflection, let them see a victim, because the best trap is the one that looks like a gift. Present time, the pit. Vincenzo was pacing. It was like watching a tiger in a cage if the tiger was 6'4", wearing a bespoke suit and radiated an aura of lethal annoyance. You want Rodrigo dead, he repeated. He stopped pacing and looked at me. That is your request. Yes, I said. Boring, he drawled. He sounded disappointed. Everyone wants Rodrigo dead. Even Rodrigo wants Rodrigo dead deep down. He is a tedious little man with delusions of adequacy. He took a step closer. The red glow of his eyes intensified. You could ask for freedom, he said softly. I could lift you out of this pit. I could give you a bag of diamonds from the hoard in the corner. You could run away to wherever it is humans run to. Florida. If I run, I said, keeping my voice steady, Rodrigo will send hunters after me. He can't let a tribute survive. It makes him look weak. I'd be dead in a week. True, Vincenzo conceded. So you want me to kill him? Fine. I can go up there right now, tear his head off, paint the walls with him. And then, he smiled. It was terrifying. And then, once the deed is done, the request is fulfilled. The law is satisfied. And you? He poked my chest with one long, cold finger. You are still in my pit, and I am still hungry. He leaned in close. His breath smelled like winter. Did you think this through, little rat? You invoke the law to kill your enemy, but you forget the second part of the equation. Once the boon is granted, the immunity ends. I didn't flinch. I'd read the codex 3 times. I knew the loophole within the loophole. I didn't finish my request, I said. Vincenzo froze. His eyes narrowed. You said you wanted Rodrigo dead. That was the goal, I said, not the method. I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment where I either died or bought myself a life. I request that you destroy the Coven of the Red Spire, I said, using the Coven's full, ancient name. I request that you remove them from power and reclaim this city. That is a large request, Vincenzo murmured. But doable. And I continued, my voice gaining an edge of steel, to ensure the task is done correctly, to ensure no stragglers survive to hunt me down. I request that you take me as your consort until the deed is fully complete. Silence. Absolute, tomb-like silence. Vincenzo stared at me. He stared at me for a full 10 seconds, unmoving, unblinking. Then he threw his head back and laughed. It was a loud, booming sound that echoed up the shaft. I heard a muffled gasp from above. The Coven heard it. They must be terrified. Their silent monster was laughing. Consort. Vincenzo wheezed, wiping a tear of blood from his eye. You, a human servant, you want to be the consort of the first king. The law says I can request protection, I said. Consort status grants absolute immunity. It grants me your mark. It grants me, I swallowed hard. It grants me the right to stand at your side. It grants you the right to warm my bed, he sneered, the humor vanishing instantly. Is that what you want? To be a pet? A blood bag with a title? I want to live, I said fiercely. And I want them to die. Being your consort is the price, I'll pay it. Vincenzo studied me. He looked at my hands, clenched into fists. He looked at my pulse, hammering in my neck. He looked at the determination in my eyes. You are invoking the marriage of bone, he said softly. Do you know why it is called that? No, I lied, I knew. Because it is not a marriage of love, he said, stepping closer. It is a binding of marrow. It is a contract written in the skeleton, if I accept. You belong to me, not just tonight. Forever, he reached out and traced the line of my jaw. His skin was ice cold, but it burned where he touched me. You become my property, he whispered. My shadow, my responsibility. If you try to run, I will find you. If you try to betray me, I will break you. If you bore me. He let the threat hang in the air. I won't bore you, I whispered. He chuckled darker this time. We shall see. He grabbed my wrist. His grip was like iron. He pulled me toward him so close our bodies were touching. I could feel the cold radiating off him, seeping into my bones. Very well, Allyssa, he said. The Coven offered you as meat. You have offered yourself as a partner. He looked up at the opening of the pit. His expression shifted from amusement to cold, predatory malice. Let us go and tell Rodrigo the good news. The Coven was drunk. They were lounging on the velvet sofas, drinking the last of the imported O-negative, congratulating themselves on another successful tribute. Did you hear the scream? Dorian asked, giggling. I thought I heard a scream. He's probably playing with her, Rodrigo said, waving a hand dismissively. The king likes to hunt before he eats. It improves the flavor. Poor Allyssa, Christie sighed, though she didn't look sad. She looked relieved it wasn't her. She was a good cleaner. Hard to replace. We'll find another stray, Rodrigo said. The city is full of them. Boom. The heavy oak doors of the grand hall didn't just open, they exploded. Splinters of wood rained down on the Coven. Dust billowed into the room. Rodrigo jumped to his feet, spilling his wine. What is the meaning of? The words died in his throat. Through the dust, a figure emerged, tall, dark, radiating an aura of power so heavy it made the air hard to breathe. Vincenzo. The Coven froze. They had never seen the king leave the pit. He was bound there. He was supposed to stay down there. And then they saw me. I walked beside him. I wasn't cowering. I wasn't bleeding. I was holding his arm, my hand resting on the sleeve of his coat like I was being escorted to a ball. Dorian dropped his glass. It shattered on the floor, the sound impossibly loud in the silence. "Allyssa," he whispered. "Good evening, Dorian," I said. My voice was steady. Vincenzo's presence was like a shield, absorbing the fear, projecting nothing but dominance. "My king," Rodrigo stammered, falling to his knees. The others quickly followed suit, scrambling to bow. We did not expect. Is the tribute unsatisfactory? We can find another." The tribute was excellent, Vincenzo said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried to every corner of the room. The tribute was enlightening. He walked forward, dragging me with him. We stopped in front of Rodrigo. The Coven leader was shaking, his eyes fixed on Vincenzo's boots. "Stand up, Rodrigo," Vincenzo commanded. Rodrigo stood. He was trembling so hard his jewelry rattled. "Why is she still alive?" Rodrigo whispered, looking at me with a mixture of confusion and horror. "Because she is not food," Vincenzo said pleasantly. "She is the law." He lifted my hand, the one resting on his arm, and held it up for the room to see. "Tonight is the blood moon," Vincenzo announced. And Allyssa invoked the marriage of bone. Gasps rippled through the room. They knew the law. They just hadn't thought a human runt would know it. "She has made a request," Vincenzo continued. "She has asked for the dissolution of this coven." Rodrigo's face went grey. "My king, surely, she is lying. She is a human servant. She cannot." "She can," Vincenzo interrupted. "And she did." He smiled. It was the smile of a wolf looking at a flock of very stupid sheep. "She has also requested my protection," he said. "She is now my consort." "Consort," Dorian squeaked her. Vincenzo turned his gaze to Dorian. Dorian stopped breathing. "Yes," Vincenzo said, "her," which means he moved. It was too fast for human eyes to follow. 1 second he was standing beside me. The next he was in front of Dorian. There was a wet crunch. Dorian didn't even scream. He just looked down, surprised at the hand that was now buried in his chest. Vincenzo ripped his hand back. He was holding Dorian's heart. It was still beating sluggishly. Which means Vincenzo finished, dropping the heart onto the floor that anyone who disrespected her has disrespected me. Dorian crumbled to ash, just like that. 500 years of life gone in a second. The Coven screamed, "Run!" Rodrigo shouted, turning to flee. "No," Vincenzo said. He raised his hand. The doors slammed shut. The windows sealed. The shadows in the room elongated, detaching themselves from the walls, forming shapes that had teeth and claws. "Nobody leaves," Vincenzo said. "My consort wants a clean house." He looked back at me. His eyes were glowing so bright they looked like twin suns. "Well, Allyssa," he asked, "shall we begin?" I looked at the screaming vampires. The monsters who had tormented me, mocked me, planned to feed me to a beast. I looked at Vincenzo, the beast himself, waiting for my command. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't fear. It wasn't pity. It was power. "Yes," I said. "Kill them all. Dorian is dust, but Rodrigo is still standing. If you want to see the rest of the Coven burn for what they did to her, hit that like button to fuel Vincenzo's fire. The massacre is just beginning." The Coven was dead. It didn't take long. Vincenzo wasn't a warrior. He was a force of nature. He moved through the room like smoke, like a thought, tearing through vampires who had lived for centuries as if they were made of wet paper. Rodrigo was the last. He crawled across the Persian rug, leaving a trail of black ichor, begging in languages that had been dead since Rome burned. "Please," he wept, clutching at Vincenzo's boots. "I served you. I fed you." "You fed me scraps," Vincenzo said, his voice bored. "And you bored me. That is the greater sin." He looked at me. He was drenched in blood, but none of it was his. It dripped from his chin, stained his white shirt crimson. He looked like a painting of a war god. "Finish him, consort," Vincenzo said. "It was your request." He offered me a sword he'd taken from the wall display. It was heavy, the hilt cold against my palm. I looked down at Rodrigo, the man who had beaten me when I missed a spot cleaning, the man who had laughed when he threw me into the pit. He looked small now, pathetic. I raised the sword. My hands were shaking, but my resolve wasn't. "This is for the cleaners," I whispered. I swung. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't graceful, but it was effective. Rodrigo's head rolled across the floor, his eyes still wide with shock. His body crumbled into dust, leaving only his expensive clothes and a pile of ash on the rug I used to scrub. Silence fell over the room. I dropped the sword. The adrenaline that had sustained me crashed, leaving me hollow and trembling. I swayed on my feet. Vincenzo caught me. His arm went around my waist, holding me up effortlessly. He smelled of copper and ozone. Impressive, he murmured against my ear. Messy, but impressive. He looked around the room at the piles of ash, the shattered furniture, the blood-stained walls. The request is fulfilled, he said. The Coven is dissolved. The city is reclaimed. He turned me to face him, his red eyes bored into mine, burning with a dangerous intensity. Now, he said softly, we discuss the price. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Vincenzo installed me in the master suite, Rodrigo's old room. It was ironic in a sick way. I used to change the sheets on this massive four-poster bed. Now I was lying in it, staring at the canopy, listening to the silence of the empty mansion. I was safe. I was alive. I had won. So why did I feel like I was suffocating? My chest ached. A dull, throbbing pain right behind my sternum, like a bruise that wouldn't heal. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Vincenzo's face. I heard his voice. I felt the phantom pressure of his hand on my wrist. I got up and walked to the window. The city lights twinkled below, oblivious to the massacre that had just happened on the hill. It hurts, doesn't it? I spun around. Vincenzo was sitting in the armchair by the fireplace. I hadn't heard him enter. I hadn't even sensed him. He was clean now, dressed in a fresh suit of charcoal grey. He held a glass of dark red liquid, swirling it lazily. What hurts? I asked, clutching my robe tighter. The tether, he said. He tapped his own chest. The marriage of bone isn't just words, Allyssa. It is a biological imperative. You bound yourself to a vampire. You invited my essence into your soul. He stood up and walked toward me. The ache in my chest flared hot, then eased as he got closer. Proximity. The pain was withdrawal. Oh God, I whispered. I'm addicted to you. Not yet, he corrected. Right now, you are merely acclimated. The addiction comes later. He stopped a foot away. He looked tired. The ancient boredom was back in his eyes, but beneath it there was something else. Curiosity, hunger. You are a strange creature, he said. You killed Rodrigo without hesitation, yet you tremble when I look at you. You're scarier than Rodrigo, I said. I am, he agreed, but I am also yours for now. He reached out and touched my cheek. The cold of his skin felt soothing against the feverish heat of the bond. The sun rises in an hour, he said. You should sleep. The transition is exhausting for mortals. Transition? I asked sharply. I'm not turning. I didn't ask to be turned. No, he said. You asked for protection. You asked to be my consort. He leaned down, his lips brushing my ear. But the law has fine print too, little rat. A human cannot hold the title of consort to the first king. It is biologically impossible. You would burn up from the proximity. He pulled back, smiling that terrible, beautiful smile. You have 7 days, he said. 7 days to prepare. And then? And then what? And then, he said, I make you worthy of the title. He turned and walked to the door. Sleep well, consort. Tomorrow we hold court. The other covens will come to see the human who leashed a king. Try not to look too delicious. The next morning the mansion was full. Not with the coven, they were dust in the vacuum cleaners, but with others, strangers, vampires I didn't recognize. They moved through the halls with predatory grace, eyeing the bloodstains on the walls with amusement rather than horror. Vultures, Vincenzo explained as he led me down the stairs. Scavengers. They heard the red spire fell. They have come to see if there are scraps to pick over. He had dressed me in a gown of midnight blue velvet, heavy and stiff. It covered me from neck to wrist, hiding my bruises, hiding my humanity. Around my neck hung a heavy silver collar studded with obsidian, a mark of ownership. Do not speak, Vincenzo instructed. Do not look them in the eye. You are the consort, but you are still prey. If they sense weakness, they will tear you apart before I can stop them. I thought I had immunity, I hissed. You have my immunity, he said. That protects you from murder. It does not protect you from politics. We entered the grand hall. It had been cleaned. My old cleaning crew had been busy, but the smell of death still lingered under the scent of lilies. 50 vampires turned to look at us. They were beautiful. They were terrifying. They were the lords and ladies of the neighboring territories, the rivals Rodrigo had feared. Vincenzo, a tall woman with hair like spun gold purred, stepping forward. We thought you were a myth, a bedtime story. I was sleeping, Genevieve, Vincenzo said smoothly. The red spire was loud. I woke up to silence them. And this. Genevieve looked at me. Her eyes were green, but they had vertical pupils like a cat. You kept a pet. How quaint. Not a pet, Vincenzo said. His voice dropped an octave, becoming a rumble that vibrated the floorboards. My consort. Silence. Genevieve's smile faltered. Consort, a human. Vincenzo, surely the sleep has addled your wits. The law forbids. The law, Vincenzo interrupted, binds me. She invoked the marriage of bone. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. They looked at me with new eyes, not as food but as a curiosity, a dangerous anomaly. She must be clever, a man in a red suit drawled, to trap the first king. She is adequate, Vincenzo said, sounding bored. He squeezed my waist, his fingers digging into the velvet. It was a warning, play along. But can she hold the position? Genevieve asked, circling us. The marriage of bone demands strength. A human body is fragile. She reached out, her nails lengthening into claws reaching for my face. Vincenzo didn't move. He let her get close. I didn't flinch. I remembered the fight with Rodrigo. I remembered the power I felt holding the sword. Touch me, I said, my voice ringing clear in the silence, and the king will add your heart to the collection on the floor. Genevieve froze. Her claw hovered an inch from my eye. She looked at Vincenzo. He was smiling. It was a proud, vicious smile. She speaks the truth, Vincenzo said. She is under my protection, and she has a temper. Genevieve pulled her hand back. She looked at me with something like respect, or maybe just caution. Very well, she said. We acknowledge the claim. She bowed. It was a shallow, mocking bow, but it was a bow. The others followed suit. We had survived the first test. But as I looked around the room at the hungry eyes and the sharp smiles, I realized the truth. I wasn't safe. I had just traded one pit for a bigger, shinier one, and my 7 days were ticking down. The Coven is gone, but the sharks are circling. If you're enjoying Alyssa's high-stakes game of survival, don't forget to like this video. It tells the algorithm you want to see, if she survives the week. By the 3rd day, the food stopped tasting like food. I tried to eat the breakfast Vincenzo's new staff had prepared, eggs, toast, fruit, but it tasted like ash. It sat heavy in my stomach, alien and wrong. The only thing that smelled good was him. Vincenzo walked into the dining room, buttoning his cuffs. He stopped when he saw me pushing the eggs around my plate. The rejection begins, he noted, taking the seat at the head of the table. I'm not hungry, I lied. You are starving, he corrected, just not for that. He leaned forward. The scent hit me, rain, old books, and underneath it, the rich copper tang of the blood that ran through his veins. My mouth watered. I felt a sharp cramp in my stomach, a hunger so violent it made my vision swim. This is part of the deal. I rasped, gripping the edge of the table. The marriage of bone merges our essences, he said, pouring himself coffee he wouldn't drink. Your body is realizing it is incompatible with your soul. Your soul belongs to a vampire. Your body is still human. It is confusing for your metabolism. So I starved to death in 4 days. Oh, he said, you accept the inevitable. He stood up and walked to my chair. He tilted my head back, exposing my neck. His fingers were cold, but they burned. I could feed you, he whispered. A drop of my blood would sustain you for a week. It would stop the pain. And speed up the transition, I asked. Yes. I pulled away. No, I have 4 days. I'm staying human as long as I can. Vincenzo sighed, straightening up. Stubborn. It is an admirable quality in a general, but a tedious one in a wife. I'm not your wife yet, I snapped. Legally, you are. Biologically, he looked me up and down. Biologically, you are a ticking bomb. The doors opened. A servant, a thrall, eyes glazed, bowed low. My king, a visitor, Lord Raphael of the Western Reach. Vincenzo's expression hardened. Send him away. I am not receiving. He says, the servant hesitated. He says he has come to challenge the validity of the compact. Vincenzo went still. The temperature in the room plummeted. The windows frosted over in seconds. Interesting, he said softly. He looked at me. It seems Genevieve has been talking. Someone thinks they have found a loophole in your loophole. Lord Raphael looked less like a vampire and more like a corporate lawyer who ate babies. He sat in the library, impeccable in a navy suit, holding a leather-bound folio. He didn't look at Vincenzo. He looked at me. The human, he said. Does she speak? She speaks when she has something intelligent to say, Vincenzo said, sitting in the high-backed chair opposite him. Unlike some. Raphael smiled thinly. I'll get to the point. The marriage of bone requires the petitioner to be a maiden of the realm. Allyssa here, he gestured to me with a dismissive hand. She is not of the realm. She is a transient, a drifter, no birth records in the city, no lineage. He slammed the folio shut. She is a stray. Strays have no standing. The compact is void. My heart hammered against my ribs. He was right. I wasn't from here. I'd run away from a foster home 3 cities over before Rodrigo's people snatched me. If the compact is void, Raphael continued, his voice silky, then she is not a consort. She is poaching on Coven territory, and the punishment for poaching is death, Vincenzo finished. He didn't look worried. He looked bored, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. Raphael was powerful. He had an army waiting outside the city limits. If Vincenzo fought him, it would be a war, and Vincenzo was still weak from his long sleep. I invoke the guest right, I said. Both vampires turned to look at me. Excuse me, Raphael asked. I'm not a poacher, I said, stepping forward. The hunger cramp hit me again, but I shoved it down. I lived in this house for 5 years. I cleaned these floors. I dusted these books. I served the Coven. I pointed to the folio in Raphael's hand. Check the labor logs. Rodrigo was meticulous about records. My name is on the peril. I wasn't a stray. I was an employee. Raphael frowned. He opened the folio. And under the sanguine labor laws of 1894, I continued, my voice gaining strength, a servant who resides in a vampire household for more than a year is considered of the house. I am not a transient. I am a resident. I leaned over the table, looking the ancient vampire in the eye. I am of the realm by service, Lord Raphael. My claim stands. Raphael stared at the ledger. He stared at me. He looked at Vincenzo, who was hiding a smile behind his hand. She is correct, Vincenzo said. Section 7, service equals citizenship. Raphael closed the book slowly. He stood up. The air crackled with tension. For a second, I thought he was going to attack. Very clever, Raphael murmured, for a human. He bowed to Vincenzo. The challenge is withdrawn, but be warned, King, the blood moon has passed. Her immunity now rests solely on your strength, and you look tired. He turned and left. As soon as the door closed, Vincenzo let out a breath he'd been holding. He slumped in the chair, his skin turning grayer. Are you okay? I asked, moving toward him. He is right, Vincenzo whispered. I am weak. The awakening, destroying the Coven, it took too much. I need to feed. He looked at me. The hunger in his eyes wasn't predatory anymore. It was desperate. I need blood, Allyssa. Real blood, not the swill from the cellar. I froze. You want to bite me? No, he groaned, closing his eyes. If I bite you now, I will kill you. The bond I won't be able to stop. He gripped the arms of the chair so hard the wood splintered. Go, he rasped. Leave the room. Lock the door. If I smell you for one more second, I will tear your throat out. I ran to the bedroom and locked the door. I pushed the dresser in front of it. I sat on the bed, my heart racing, listening to the sounds of Vincenzo destroying the library downstairs. He was starving, and because of the bond, I could feel it. I felt his hollowness. I felt the burning ache in his veins. He was dying. If he didn't feed on powerful blood soon, he would wither. And if he withered, Raphael would come back. And he wouldn't bring a lawyer this time. I looked at my arm. Pale skin. Blue veins. I was the consort. I was the one who had demanded this. I had demanded he be my weapon. You have to maintain your weapons. I stood up. I walked to the door. I pushed the dresser aside. I walked down the stairs. The library was a wreck. Books were torn apart. Furniture was smashed. Vincenzo was huddled in the corner, shaking. "I told you to leave," he snarled, not looking up. "You need blood," I said, "not yours." "There's no one else here, Vincenzo." I walked over to him. I knelt in front of him. I pulled the collar of my dress down, exposing my neck. "Drink," I said. He looked up. His eyes were black pools. The red glow was gone, replaced by a void of pure need. "If I start," he whispered, "I might not stop." "Then I'll stop you," I said, "or the bond will." I reached out and took his hand. I placed it on my waist. "Do it. That's an order, King." He let out a sound that was half sob, half growl. He surged forward. His fangs pierced my skin. It didn't hurt. That was the surprise. It felt electric. A jolt of cold fire that shot down my spine and curled my toes. I gasped, clutching his shoulders. I could feel the blood leaving me, the life force draining away. But I also felt him. I felt his gratitude, his relief, his power returning, flooding into him like a tide. And then I felt the shift. The moment where the hunger took over. The moment where he stopped being Vincenzo and became the beast. He growled against my throat, his grip tightening, his drinking becoming frantic, violent. My vision blurred. Cold crept into my limbs. "He's killing me," I thought. "He's actually doing it." "Vincenzo," I whispered. He didn't stop. "Vincenzo," I screamed, pushing at his chest. Nothing. He was lost in the blood. I was fading. The darkness was closing in. I had saved him, and now he was going to consume me. Then the ring on his finger, the heavy gold signet of the king, burned against my skin. The law, the contract, protection. He froze. With a wrenching gasp, he tore himself away from me. He threw himself backward, crashing into the bookshelf, chest heaving, mouth stained crimson. I collapsed onto the floor, clutching my neck. The room spun. Vincenzo stared at me, horror dawning in his eyes. He wiped his mouth, looking at the blood on his hand. My blood. "I almost," he choked out. "But you didn't," I whispered. He scrambled over to me. He bit his own wrist and pressed it to my mouth. "Drink," he commanded. "Heal." I drank. His blood was thick, metallic, and hot. It seared my throat. The wound on my neck closed instantly. The strength rushed back into my limbs, but something else happened too. The ache in my chest, the bond snapped into focus. It wasn't a bruise anymore. It was a chain, a golden, burning chain connecting my heart to his. I looked at him. He looked at me. His eyes weren't black anymore. They were gold. "You fed me," he whispered, touching the healing skin of my neck. "You saved me." "I invested in my asset," I said, though my voice was shaky. He laughed, a soft, breathless sound. He leaned his forehead against mine. "You are terrifying, Allyssa." "I know." We sat there in the ruins of the library, covered in each other's blood, breathing the same air. The 7 days weren't up, but the transition had already begun. I could feel his heartbeat. And for the first time, it was beating in sync with mine. The 7th day dawned with a silence that felt heavy enough to crush bone. I woke up cold. Not the chill of a drafty room, but a deep, pervasive cold that started in my marrow and worked its way out. My fingers were stiff. My heartbeat was sluggish, a slow, heavy drum in my ears. Thump, thump, thump. I rolled over. Vincenzo was watching me. He wasn't in bed. He was standing by the balcony doors, shrouded in shadow. He looked grim. "It is time," he said. "The 7 days," I whispered. My voice sounded strange, hollow. "Is it over?" "The grace period is over," he said. He walked toward the bed. He looked like he was walking to a funeral. "Your body has held on as long as it can. The bond is demanding its due." He sat on the edge of the bed. He reached out and took my hand. His skin, usually so cold to me, felt warm. That was bad. That meant my temperature was dropping below his. "You have a choice," he said. "Do I?" "You can dissolve the marriage," he said. The words seemed to cost him physical pain to speak. "You can release me from the request. The bond will break. You will return to being human. You will leave this house, and you will never see me again." "And Raphael?" I asked. "The other covens?" "I will hold them off," he promised. "I will buy you time to run. You can have a life, Allyssa, a mortal life. Sunsets, children, aging." He squeezed my hand. Or, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper, you stay. You let the transition complete. You die, Allyssa, and you wake up as something else. I looked at him. I looked at the dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. He was giving me an out. He was offering to fight a war alone just to give me a chance at being normal. I thought about the normal life I'd had before, the scrubbing, the fear, the invisibility. I thought about the last 7 days, the terror, yes, but also the power, the respect, the feeling of being seen, truly seen, by a creature who had watched empires rise and fall. I don't want to be normal, I said. Vincenzo closed his eyes. You don't know what you are asking. The hunger, the cold, the eternity. It is a burden. It's a life, I said, and it's our life. I sat up. The room spun, but I gritted my teeth. I'm not breaking the contract, Vincenzo. I signed on for the full package. Consort, partner, vampire. He opened his eyes. They were burning gold. Then we must be quick, he said. Your heart is failing. He stood and pulled me up. My legs gave way immediately. He caught me, lifting me into his arms like I weighed nothing. He carried me down to the pit. It felt fitting. This was where it started. This was where it would end. The pit was different now. He had cleaned it. There were candles, hundreds of them, flickering in the dark. In the center of the stone floor, there was a shallow basin carved into the rock. It was filled with water that glowed faintly silver. The font of origins, he explained, laying me gently on the edge of the basin. The old way, the royal way. He knelt beside me. He unbuttoned his cuff and rolled up his sleeve. This will not be like the feeding in the library, he warned. That was sustenance. This is reconstruction. It will hurt. I can handle it, I said. I know you can. He smiled, a sad, proud smile. You are the strongest creature I have met in 5 centuries. He took a silver dagger from his belt. He drew it across his wrist. Dark, thick blood welled up. Drink, he said. Drink until your heart stops. And then, wait for me. I took his wrist. I drank. It wasn't like before. It wasn't electric. It was heavy. It tasted of iron and earth and time. It tasted like swallowing a mountain. I drank, and the cold in my limbs intensified. The darkness at the edge of my vision grew. My heart. Thump, thump, silence. The pain hit me a second later. It was a wave of fire that started in my stomach and exploded outward. I screamed, but no sound came out. My lungs weren't working. I was dying. I was dead. I am here, Vincenzo's voice whispered in the dark. I am here. Hold on to me. I felt his hand on my forehead. I felt the bond, that golden chain, pulling tight, anchoring me to the world. Then the darkness swallowed me whole. The awakening. I didn't wake up. I ignited. My eyes snapped open. The world was loud. I could hear the drip of water 3 rooms away. I could hear the scuttle of a spider in the walls. I could hear the wind outside singing against the stone. I sat up. The pain was gone. The cold was gone. I felt limitless. I looked at my hands. They were pale, luminous in the candlelight. I could see the texture of the stone floor in microscopic detail. Allyssa. Vincenzo was standing over me. He looked anxious. I stood up. It was effortless. I felt light, fast, dangerous. I looked at him, really looked at him. I could see the pulse in his neck. I could smell the ancient dust on his coat. I could hear the blood moving in his veins. It smelled intoxicating. Vincenzo, I said. My voice was different. It was deeper, smoother. It sounded like music. Are you? He asked. I smiled. I felt my fangs extend, sharp and new against my lip. I'm me, I said. Just more. He let out a breath of relief. He reached for me. Crash. The sound came from above, from the grand hall, the sound of doors being breached, the sound of heavy boots, the sound of steel. Vincenzo spun around, his expression hardening. Hunters, he hissed. Raphael didn't come alone. He brought the church. The church, I asked. The vampire hunters, they track the energy of a turning. A royal turning sets off alarms for miles. He looked at me. You are a newborn. You are weak. You must hide. Hide, I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. I looked at the stone walls. I could feel the vibrations of the men upstairs. I could smell their fear. I could smell their blood. I wasn't weak. I was starving. And I was the consort of the king. I'm not hiding, I said. I walked to the weapon rack on the wall of the pit, Vincenzo's personal collection, and picked up a long, silver sword. It felt like a feather in my hand. "You said you wanted to clean house, Vincenzo," I said, turning to him, my gold eyes locked with his. "Let's finish the job." Vincenzo looked at me. He looked at the sword. He looked at the monster he had created. A slow, terrifying grin spread across his face. "After you, my queen." We walked toward the stairs, toward the screams, toward the war. The Coven was dead. The king was awake. And the new queen was hungry. If you want to see Allyssa and Vincenzo tear through the vampire hunters in episode 2, make sure you're subscribed. The transformation is complete, but the reign of blood is just beginning. Learned 3 things in the first 3 seconds of my new life. 1. Being a vampire doesn't feel like being dead. It feels like being too alive. It feels like someone turned the volume of the world up to a deafening scream. 2. A silver sword, which according to every legend should be burning the skin off my palm, felt as cool and harmless as a spoon. 3. The men kicking down the front door of the mansion weren't here to negotiate. Breach. A voice roared from the top of the stairs. Sanctified rounds, no mercy. Vincenzo stumbled beside me. The king of vampires, the monster who had torn a coven apart with his bare hands yesterday, grabbed the banister to keep from falling. His skin was grey. His eyes, usually burning red, were dim flickers. "Allyssa," he rasped. "Run." I looked at him. I looked at the stairs where 5 men in tactical gear were pouring into the hallway. They smelled of gun oil, holy water, and fear. So much fear. It hit my nose like a physical blow, a sour metallic tang that made my mouth water. "I don't run anymore," I said. My voice sounded strange. It was a purr, a growl wrapped in velvet. The first hunter saw us. He raised a rifle. "Contact," he shouted. "Targets acquired. 1 royal, 1 unknown." He fired. The bullet left the barrel. I saw the muzzle flash. I saw the rotation of the slug. I saw the air distort around it. It was moving so slowly. I didn't think. I moved. I stepped in front of Vincenzo. I raised the sword. Clang. The bullet hit the flat of the blade and ricocheted into the stone wall. Silence. The hunter froze. His squad mates froze. Vincenzo, behind me, let out a breath that sounded like a shock. "Impossible," the hunter whispered. That's a silver blade." "Is it?" I asked. I looked at the sword. It was shining in the candlelight. "It feels light." I smiled. I felt my fangs slide over my bottom lip. "You broke my door," I said. Then I launched myself up the stairs. I covered the distance in a blink. 1 second I was at the bottom, the next I was in the hunter's face. He smelled of coffee and peppermint. He had a pulse that hammered against his neck like a trapped bird. Thump, thump, thump. It was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. He tried to bring the rifle up. I swatted it away. The metal barrel bent like putty under my hand. "Monster!" He screamed, reaching for a knife. I didn't want to kill him. Part of me, the human part, the Allyssa who cleaned floors, wanted to ask him to leave. But then I felt the heat. A UV grenade. The second hunter pulled the pin and rolled it down the stairs. "Vincenzo!" I shouted. I didn't think about the hunter in front of me. I turned and jumped backwards, landing in front of Vincenzo, just as the grenade detonated. A flash of blinding, searing ultraviolet light exploded in the narrow stairwell. It hit my back. It felt like a sunburn, uncomfortable, stinging, but bearable. But Vincenzo screamed. He fell to his knees, covering his face. Smoke rose from his hands. His skin blistered instantly. "The king is down." The squad leader shouted. "Press the advantage. Kill the girl." Rage, it wasn't human anger. It was a cold, black tide that rose up and swallowed me whole. They hurt him. They hurt my king. I spun around. "You shouldn't have done that," I whispered. I moved through the light. The hunters fired again. Bullets, wooden stakes, more grenades. I dodged. I weaved. I felt the wind of their passing on my skin. I reached the squad leader, a big man with a scar over his eye, Sealers. I knew his name somehow. Maybe I heard it. Maybe I smelled it on him. He swung a machete coated in something that smelled like garlic and acid. I caught the blade with my bare hand. The acid sizzled against my skin. It strung, but it didn't burn. Sealers' eyes went wide. "What are you?" "I'm the consort," I said. I drove the silver sword through his chest. It was effortless, like cutting water. He gasped, blood bubbling past his lips. The scent of it, hot, iron-rich, fresh, hit me like a drug. My vision tunneled. My fangs ached. Drink, a voice in my head whispered. Drink and become strong. I pulled the sword out. Sealers fell. The other hunters hesitated. They looked at their leader, dead on the floor. They looked at me, standing in a pool of ultraviolet light, holding a silver sword, unburned. Fall back, one of them screamed. It's an abomination, fall back. They scrambled up the stairs, firing blindly behind them. I wanted to chase them. I wanted to hunt them down the hallway, into the street, into the night. The predator in me was screaming for the chase. Allyssa. Vincenzo's voice, weak, painful, the rage vanished. The predator receded. I turned. Vincenzo was curled on the floor of the pit, smoke rising from his skin. He wasn't healing. He was too weak to heal. I dropped the sword. I ran to him. Vincenzo, I said, falling to my knees. I tried to touch his face, but my hands were covered in Sealers' blood. I pulled them back. Don't touch me, he hissed through clenched teeth. The blood, the smell, I will lose control. His eyes were black voids. He was starving, wounded, and smelling fresh blood on his own mate. We have to go, I said. More will come. I cannot walk, he whispered. The admission clearly cost him more than the burns. My legs, they will not hold me. Then I'll carry you. You are a newborn, he scoffed weakly. You do not have the strength to. I didn't argue. I slid my arm under his shoulders and another under his knees. I lifted him. He was heavy, dense muscle and ancient bone, but to me, he felt like a child. His eyes widened in shock. We're leaving, I said. Hold on, King. Your queen is driving. If you're loving Alyssa's transformation from victim to warrior, make sure you're subscribed. The hunters are retreating, but they'll be back with bigger weapons. You don't want to miss the war that's coming. I carried him past the body of Sealers. I didn't look down. If I looked, I would see the blood. If I saw the blood, I would stop. And if I stopped, I would feed. The library, Vincenzo, rasped against my shoulder. His head was resting on my chest. Behind the heavy bookcase, there is a lever. I ran up the stairs, 2 at a time. The mansion was quiet now, but the air still smelled of cordite and holiness. I kicked the library door open. The room was already destroyed from Vincenzo's tantrum earlier, which was helpful. I found the bookcase he meant. Move it, he said. I braced my shoulder against the mahogany. It must have weighed 500 pounds. It slid aside with a screech of metal on stone. Behind it was a dark, narrow tunnel. The air that drifted out smelled of mold, earth, and something ancient. The old ways, Vincenzo murmured, built by the Romans. The Coven forgot them. I did not. I stepped into the dark. The tunnel was tight. I had to angle my body to keep Vincenzo's feet from hitting the walls. It was pitch black, but my new eyes adjusted instantly. The world shifted into grayscale, sharp, high contrast, perfect visibility. Put me down, Vincenzo said after a few minutes. I can walk. The burns, they are cooling. I hesitated, then set him down gently. He leaned heavily against the damp wall, breathing hard. His face was a mess of red blisters, but I could see the skin knitting together, slowly, painfully. You fought, he said. He was looking at me, not at the blood on my dress, but at my eyes. You killed. He was going to kill you, I said. He used a UV grenade, Vincenzo said. It should have blinded you. It should have burned your skin. He reached out and touched my arm. The skin was smooth, unblemished. You are unhurt, he whispered. How? I don't know, I said. It strung, like a sunburn, but it didn't burn. And the sword, he asked. The silver sword. It felt like metal, just metal. Vincenzo closed his eyes. He looked terrified. What? I asked. What is it? Newborns are weak, he said. They are sensitive to everything. Light, silver, garlic. You held pure silver. You walked through concentrated sunlight. He opened his eyes. You are not just a vampire, Allyssa. You are something else. Something else. An anomaly, he said. Or a miracle, depending on who you ask. He pushed himself off the wall. He stumbled and I caught him. We must keep moving, he said. The tunnels lead to the safe house in the industrial district. We will be safe there for a few hours. We walked. I kept my arm around his waist, supporting him. The role reversal was complete. The king was leaning on the cleaner. "You need blood," I said softly. "You're not healing fast enough." "I know." "There are rats down here," I said. "Or I could run up to the surface, grab a stray cat." "I am a king," he sneered, though it lacked heat. "I do not eat rats." "You're a king who can't walk straight," I countered. "Eat the rat, Vincenzo." He glared at me, then he sighed. "Find me a rat." It took me 3 minutes to catch a rat. It was fat, slow, and stupid. I held it out to Vincenzo. He looked at it with profound disgust. "This is dignified," he muttered. He snapped the rat's neck and drank. It was over in seconds. He tossed the carcass aside and wiped his mouth. "Better?" I asked. "Marginally. It tastes like sewage." But the color was returning to his cheeks. The blisters were fading faster. He stood straighter. "We are close," he said. "The exit is ahead." We walked in silence for a moment. Then Vincenzo spoke. "You saved me," he said. He didn't look at me. "Back there, on the stairs, you stepped in front of the grenade." "It's part of the job description," I said lightly. "Consort, protector." "No," he said. He stopped. He turned me to face him. "You invoked the law to force me to protect you. That was the deal. You command. I obey. I bleed. You live." His hand tightened on my shoulder. "You were not supposed to bleed for me, Allyssa." "Plans change," I said. "Deals evolve." I looked at his chest where his shirt was torn. I could see the skin underneath, pale and scarred. "You nearly died turning me," I said. "You gave me your blood, your strength. You made me this. Whatever I am, I'm not just your consort, Vincenzo. I'm your investment." I smiled, a sharp vampire smile, and I protect my assets. He stared at me. The look on his face was complicated, pride, confusion, and underneath it all, a simmering heat that had nothing to do with the grenades. "We are in trouble," he whispered. "You and I." "Why?" "Because," he said, leaning in, "I think I am beginning to like taking orders from you." My breath hitched. The bond flared in my chest, warm, golden, electric. For a second, in the dark, damp tunnel, surrounded by rats and sewage, I wanted to kiss him. I wanted to taste the rat blood on his lips. "King Vincenzo," I whispered. "Yes, my queen." "Walk faster." He laughed. It was a genuine laugh this time. We reached the end of the tunnel. An iron ladder led up to a manhole cover. Vincenzo climbed first. He pushed the cover open. Rain and city noise flooded in. He climbed out, then reached down a hand to help me. I took it. I pulled myself up. We were in an alleyway. Brick walls, dumpsters, the sound of traffic in the distance. We were safe, or so we thought. "Don't move," a voice said. We froze. Standing at the mouth of the alley was a man. He wasn't a hunter. He wasn't wearing tactical gear. He was wearing a bespoke navy suit. He held a leather folio in one hand. Lord Raphael, he smiled. His fangs were out. "I knew you'd use the Roman tunnels," Raphael said. "You are so predictable, Vincenzo." He looked at me. He looked at the blood on my dress. He looked at my golden eyes. His smile widened. "And you," he said to me, "the golden-eyed girl, the day walker." He snapped his folio shut. "The church doesn't want you dead anymore, my dear. They want you alive. They want to know how a vampire can hold silver and walk in the sun." He stepped closer. "And I," Raphael purred, "am going to sell you to them for a very high price." Vincenzo snarled and stepped in front of me. But he staggered. The rat blood wasn't enough. He was still weak. Raphael laughed. "Look at him, the great king, reduced to a bodyguard." He looked at me. "Come with me, Allyssa, willingly, and I will let Vincenzo live. Refuse." He snapped his fingers. 10 vampires dropped from the rooftops. They surrounded us. They were Raphael's elite guard. "Refuse," Raphael said, "and I will make you watch while we dismantle him piece by piece." I looked at Vincenzo. He was ready to fight. He was ready to die. I looked at Raphael. I looked at the silver sword still clutched in my hand. "Willingly?" I asked. "Willingly," Raphael nodded. I took a step forward. I lowered the sword. "Okay," I said. "I surrender." Vincenzo whipped his head around. "Allyssa, no." Hush, I told him. I walked toward Raphael. I held out my hands like I was waiting for handcuffs. Smart girl, Raphael said. He reached for me. I smiled. I didn't say I surrender to you, I whispered. I dropped the sword, and I punched him, not a human punch, a vampire punch. Fueled by newborn rage and royal blood, my fist connected with his jaw. There was a sound like a gunshot. Raphael, an ancient lord, a powerful vampire, flew backward. He hit the brick wall 20 feet away. He went through the brick wall. The elite guard stared. Vincenzo stared. I stared at my own hand. Oops, I said. Then chaos erupted. Allyssa just punched a vampire lord through a building. If that doesn't deserve a like, I don't know what does. Hit that button if you're ready for the street war. Raphael's elite guard didn't look like the Coven vampires. They didn't wear velvet. They wore tactical leather and ceramic armor. They moved like oil spilling across water, fluid, silent, and synchronized. There were 10 of them, and I had just punched their boss through a brick wall. Kill her, the lieutenant said. He didn't shout. He didn't scream. He just gave the order like he was ordering lunch. They swarmed. I expected to be afraid. I expected the human part of my brain, the part that used to cry when I dropped a plate, to freeze up. But the human part of my brain was quiet. The new part, the predator part, was doing calculus. Target 1, 12 o'clock. Speed, fast. Weapon, dual daggers. Target 2, 3 o'clock. Flanking. Weapon, chain. The world slowed down. It was the same sensation as when I caught the bullet, but magnified. I could see the individual stitches in the lieutenant's leather jacket. Duck, Vincenzo said. He didn't shout it, he whispered it. Amidst the chaos, his voice cut through the noise like a razor blade. I ducked. A chain whipped over my head, missing me by a millimeter. The air cracked where my ear had been a second ago. Low kick, Vincenzo commanded. Break the knee. I lashed out with my leg. I felt the impact, bones snapping against my shin. It felt like kicking a twig. The vampire with the chain screamed and went down. Behind you, Vincenzo warned. Elbow. I drove my elbow backward. It connected with something soft, a nose, maybe a throat. There was a wet crunch. I was fighting. I was winning. But there were too many of them. I was strong, yes, I was fast, but I was clumsy. I was brawling like a bar fighter, swinging wild haymakers and relying on brute force. They were fighting like surgeons. A dagger sliced across my arm. It strung, a sharp, hot line of pain, but the wound knit itself together before the blood could even hit the pavement. She heals instantly, one of the guards shouted, backing away. Silver doesn't slow her down. Overwhelm her, another yelled, pin her limbs. 3 of them jumped me at once. The weight drove me to the wet pavement. I snarled, thrashing, but they were heavy. One locked his arm around my throat. Another pinned my legs. Vincenzo! I gasped. The king moved. He had been leaning against the wall, conserving his strength, watching me with those calculating, ancient eyes. Now he exploded into motion. He wasn't fast like me. He was efficient. He grabbed the vampire, choking me by the hair, and slammed his face into the brick wall. He didn't waste energy on a second hit. He just pivoted, grabbed the second vampire by the collar, and threw him into the path of an oncoming truck on the main road. Screech. Thud. Vincenzo offered me a hand. He was breathing hard, a sheen of sweat on his pale forehead. He looked like a marble statue that was starting to crack. Up, he said. We cannot win this. Not here, not now. I took down 3, I argued, grabbing his hand. You flailed at 3, he corrected, pulling me to my feet. You have power, Allyssa, but you have no technique. You fight like a toddler with a sledgehammer. Effective, but messy. He looked at the end of the alley. Raphael was pulling himself out of the rubble of the wall. His jaw was hanging at a wrong angle, but it snapped back into place with a sickening click. Raphael looked pissed. Run, Vincenzo said. This time I didn't argue. We ran. We hit the main street, weaving through traffic. Cars honked. People screamed. To them, we were just a blur of motion, a trick of the light. We turned a corner, vaulted a 10-foot fence, and disappeared into the industrial labyrinth of the docks. Safe House wasn't a house. It was a slaughterhouse, literally. It was an abandoned meatpacking plant on the edge of the river. It smelled of old rust, brine, and phantom copper. Vincenzo keyed a code into a keypad hidden behind a loose brick. The heavy steel door slid open with a groan. We slipped inside. The door clanged shut, sealing us in darkness. Vincenzo slumped against the wall. He slid down until he was sitting on the dirty concrete floor. "Are you okay?" I asked, rushing to him. "I am adequate," he lied. He closed his eyes. "The exertion, it burns calories I do not have." He looked terrible. His skin was translucent. I could see the dark veins pulsing underneath, hungry and hollow. "There are no rats here," I said, looking around the empty, echoing space. "There is a cooler," he rasped, pointing a shaking finger toward the back of the warehouse. "Emergency reserves, blood bags, O negative." I ran. I found the industrial fridge. It was humming, powered by a backup generator. Inside, stacked neatly on metal shelves, were rows of medical blood bags. It looked like the world's creepiest grocery store. I grabbed 3 bags and ran back. Vincenzo tore into the first one like a starving animal. He didn't bother with a glass. He just ripped the plastic with his fangs and drained it in seconds. The second bag went just as fast. By the third, he slowed down. The color returned to his face. The tremors in his hands stopped. He wiped a drop of red from his lip with the back of his thumb, a gesture so elegant, so inherently royal, that it made my heart stutter in my chest. "Better?" I asked. "Functional," he said. He looked at me. His eyes were burning gold again, reflecting my own. "You fought well for a toddler." "I punched a lord through a wall," I reminded him, sitting down next to him. The concrete was cold, but I didn't feel it. "That counts for something." "It counts for surprise," he said. "Raphael did not expect you to have the strength of an elder. Neither did I." He reached out and took my hand. He turned it over, inspecting the palm. "You held the silver sword," he murmured. "For 20 minutes. You fought with it. You dropped it only when you surrendered." He ran his thumb over my skin. There were no burns, no blisters, not even a mark. "Do you know what this means, Allyssa?" "It means I'm lucky. It means you are impossible." He looked at me, and his expression was a mix of awe and fear. "Vampires are dead things," he said softly. "We are static. We cannot change. We burn in the sun because we are an affront to nature. We burn by silver because it is a pure metal. But you—" He brought my hand to his lips. He kissed my palm. "You are not dead. I felt your heart beating when I turned you. It stopped, yes, but it started again." I put a hand to my chest. Thump, thump. It was slow, maybe 10 beats a minute, but it was there. "I'm alive." I whispered. "You are a hybrid," he said. "Or an evolution, the font of origins. It was meant for royal bloodlines. Perhaps combined with the blood moon, combined with the marriage of bone. It created something new." "What do you think Allyssa has become? Is she the next step in vampire evolution, or something far more dangerous? Leave a comment with your theory. I read every single one." "If I'm not a normal vampire," I said slowly, "then Raphael isn't just going to kill me." "No," Vincenzo said grimly. "He is going to dissect you." We spent the next hour testing my limits. It was Vincenzo's idea. If we were going to survive the night, we needed to know what I was capable of. "Strength," Vincenzo said. He pointed to a steel support beam. "Hit it." I punched the beam. The steel dented like aluminium foil. The warehouse shook. Dust rained down from the rafters. "Strength confirmed," Vincenzo noted dryly. "Approximately 5 times that of a fledgling, equal to a lord of 3 centuries. "Speed," he said. "Catch this." He picked up a rusty bolt and threw it. He didn't throw it like a human. He threw it like a bullet. My hand moved before I made the decision to move it. I snatched the bolt out of the air inches from my face. "Reflexes, superior," Vincenzo said. He looked pleased. "Now for the difficult part." He walked over to a window high up on the warehouse wall. It was painted over with black paint to keep out the sun. "It is noon," he said. "The sun is directly overhead." He picked up a rock. "If I break this glass, a shaft of sunlight will hit the floor. If I step into it, I will burst into flames within seconds, if you step into it." "I might burst into flames," I finished. "Or," he said, "you might not." He looked at me. "Do you trust me?" "You're the one who turned me into a science experiment," I said. "But yes, I trust you." "Stand ready." He threw the rock. Crash. The glass shattered. A beam of pure, brilliant sunlight sliced through the dusty air of the warehouse. It hit the concrete floor a few feet away from us. Vincenzo hissed and stepped back into the shadows. Even the scattered reflection of the light seemed to hurt his eyes. "Hand," he commanded, "just the hand." Took a deep breath. I extended my arm. I moved my hand toward the light. My instincts screamed, danger, fire, death. Every cell in my vampire body recoiled. I gritted my teeth and shoved my hand into the sun. I waited for the pain. I waited for the smell of burning flesh. Nothing happened. It felt warm. It felt like a gentle caress. I wiggled my fingers. The skin didn't blister. It didn't smoke. It just looked pale and gold in the light. "Oh my God," I whispered. I stepped forward. I stepped fully into the beam of light. It bathed me. It warmed the cold deadness in my bones. I felt energized. I felt charged. I looked back at Vincenzo. He was pressed against the far wall, staring at me with wide, terrified eyes. "Daywalker," he whispered. The words sounded like a blasphemy. "I can walk in the sun," I said, turning in the light, watching dust motes dance around me. "Vincenzo, I can go out there. I can leave." "You can," he agreed. His voice was flat. "You can walk out that door right now. Raphael cannot follow you. The hunters cannot track you visually. You could disappear." I stopped turning. I looked at him. He looked small in the shadows, lonely. "Is that what you want?" I asked. "For me to leave?" "It would be safer for you," he said. "I am an anchor. I am a target. If you stay with me, you are hunted. If you leave—" "If I leave," I said, stepping out of the light and walking back into the dark to stand before him. "Who protects you while you sleep during the day?" He blinked. "I have guards, I have." "You have dead guards," I said brutally. "The Coven is gone. Your thralls are useless against the church. You are alone, Vincenzo." I reached out and took his hand. I pulled him slightly away from the wall. "You protected me when I was human," I said. "You gave me your blood. You gave me your name." I squeezed his hand. "Role reversal, remember. The sun is up. You're the weak one now. I'm the strong one." "Allyssa." "I'm not going anywhere," I said firmly. "We have a war to win, and I think I just figured out how to win it." "How?" "Raphael and the church expect us to be hiding in the dark," I said, looking back at the sunbeam. "They expect us to be sleeping in coffins until sunset." I smiled. It was a vicious, sharp smile. They aren't expecting a vampire who can knock on their front door at high noon. Vincenzo stared at me, then a slow smile spread across his face, a smile that matched mine. "No," he said, "they certainly are not." "Get in the coffin, King," I said, pointing to a large shipping crate in the corner. "Get some sleep. I have some errands to run." "Errands?" "I need weapons," I said. "I need intel, and I need a change of clothes. This dress is ruined." "Be careful," he said. He hesitated, then leaned in and kissed me. It was quick, cold, and desperate. "Come back to me." "Always," I promised. He climbed into the crate. I covered him with a tarp. I waited until his breathing slowed, until he entered the day sleep. Then I turned back to the sunbeam. I walked out of the warehouse and into the bright, blinding, beautiful day. The city was mine now, and Raphael wouldn't see me coming until I was standing in his living room. The city looked different through gold eyes. The colors were sharper. The noises were layered. I could hear the hum of electricity in the streetlights, the heartbeat of a pedestrian a block away, the scuffle of pigeons on a roof. But the biggest difference was the feeling of invincibility. I walked down Main Street at 2 in the afternoon. The sun was high and bright. To any other vampire, this was an inferno. To me, it was a battery charger. I stopped in front of a tactical supply store. It was closed. I knocked on the door, no answer. I knocked harder. The glass cracked. "Oops," I whispered. I let myself in. I grabbed a duffel bag and started filling it. Kevlar vest, combat boots, a serrated hunting knife that looked mean, a tactical flashlight. I didn't pay. I left a diamond from Vincenzo's hoard on the counter. That should cover it. My next stop was the cathedral, not a metaphor, the literal cathedral of St. Jude on the hill, the headquarters of the church, the hunter faction Raphael had hired. I stood across the street, eating a hot dog I'd bought from a vendor. It tasted like sawdust, but I needed the calories to blend in. I watched the building. Men in suits were coming and going. They looked like bankers. They smelled like wolfsbane and silver nitrate. I focused my hearing. I pushed my senses toward the building, filtering out the traffic, the wind, the noise. Target lost in the industrial district. Scanning the sewers. Raphael is furious. He wants the girl alive. Gotcha. I walked across the street. I walked up the steps of the cathedral. I walked right past the security guard who tried to stop me. Miss, you can't go in there, he said, reaching for my arm. I grabbed his wrist. I squeezed. Just a little. Just enough to let him feel the steel under the skin. I'm here for confession, I said, looking him in the eye. I have sins to unburden. He paled. He stepped back. I walked into the nave. It was empty except for a few tourists taking pictures. I walked to the altar. I found the door behind the pulpit, the one marked private. I kicked it open. Behind it wasn't an office. It was an armory, racks of silver swords, UV cannons, stakes made of white ash. And in the center of the room, poring over a map of the city, was a man I recognized from the files in Vincenzo's library. High Priest Marcus, the leader of the hunters. He looked up. He saw a girl in combat boots and a stolen Kevlar vest standing in his doorway. You're lost, child, he said, reaching for a pistol on his desk. I'm not lost, I said. I'm the anomaly. I moved. I crossed the room before he could lift the gun. I grabbed the barrel and crushed it. Marcus stared at the twisted metal. He looked at me. He looked at the sunlight streaming through the open door behind me. You, he whispered. You're walking in the day. Surprise, I said. I grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall. Where is Raphael? I asked. Go to hell, leech, he spat. I just came from there, I said. It's damp and the service is terrible. I tightened my grip. Raphael, I repeated. Where is he staging the next attack? Marcus gasped. His face turned purple. The old opera house, he choked out. Sunset, he's meeting reinforcements. How many? 50, Marcus wheezed. Elite guard, and then something else, something from the old world. What? A gargle, Marcus whispered. He woke a gargle. I dropped him. He slid to the floor, coughing. A gargle, I asked. Are you serious? What is this, a cartoon? It eats stone, Marcus rasped. It eats magic. It eats vampires. Well, I said, picking up a silver sword from the rack. Good thing I'm not just a vampire. I turned to leave. Wait, Marcus said. He was looking at me with a strange expression. Fear, yes, but also curiosity. What are you? I paused at the door. I looked back at him, my golden eyes catching the light. I'm the future, I said. Then I knocked him unconscious with the hilt of the sword and walked out. I got back to the warehouse an hour before sunset. The crate was still closed. I pried the lid off. Vincenzo was sleeping. He looked peaceful, younger. The lines of stress were gone from his face. His hands were crossed over his chest like a knight on a tomb. Wake up, sleeping beauty, I said softly. His eyes snapped open. Red, instantly alert. Allyssa. I'm back. He sat up. He looked at me. He looked at the tactical gear. He looked at the duffel bag full of weapons I dropped on the floor. You went shopping, he noted. I went hunting, I corrected. I found them. Raphael is at the opera house. He's gathering an army for tonight. Tonight? Vincenzo stood up. He moved stiffly, but the weakness was gone. The sleep had helped. We must leave. We must find a deeper hole. No, I said. We're not hiding anymore. I kicked the duffel bag toward him. There's a Kevlar vest in there that might fit you, and a sword that balances nicely. You want to attack? He asked, incredulous. 50 vampires and Raphael. And a gargle, I added. Don't forget the gargle. A gargle, Vincenzo paled. Allyssa, a gargle is a siege engine. It is immune to physical damage. It is immune to mental compulsion. It is. Made of stone, I finished. I know. I walked over to him. I put my hands on his shoulders. You're the king, I said. You don't run, you rule. I am a king without an army, he said bitterly. You have me, I said, and I'm worth 50 of them. He looked at me. He saw the fire in my eyes. He saw the confidence. You truly believe we can win, he whispered. I know we can. He sighed, a long, weary sigh that sounded like 5 centuries of exhaustion leaving his body. Very well, he said. If we are to die, we shall die gloriously. He reached into the bag and pulled out the vest. He put it on over his shirt. It ruined the lines of his suit, but it made him look dangerous, like a modern warlord. One thing, he said. What? He pulled a small dagger from his boot. He cut his palm. The blood oath, he said. Before we go into battle, it is tradition. He offered me his hand. Drink, he said. Just a drop, it binds us. If one falls, the other knows instantly. If one dies, the other avenges. I took his hand. I licked the blood from his palm. It was electric again. A jolt of power that settled in my gut like a second sun. I swear, I said. He licked the blood from his own palm, mixing his saliva with mine. I swear, he echoed. The bond flared. It wasn't just a chain anymore. It was a network of nerves. I could feel his heartbeat as if it were my own. I could feel the texture of his vest against his skin. I could feel his fear and his pride and his fierce, overwhelming love. Let's go, he said. The sun is setting. It is time for the night shift. The opera house was a ruin. It had burned down in the 1920s and never been rebuilt. It was a skeleton of stone arches and rotting wood, looming over the city like a dead giant. We stood on the roof of the building opposite. The wind whipped my hair around my face. The sun was gone. The moon was rising. There, Vincenzo pointed. In the courtyard below, shadows were moving. Vampires, dozens of them. They were forming ranks, checking weapons. They were disciplined. Raphael had trained them well. And in the center of the courtyard, something massive was crouching. It looked like a statue of a demon carved from granite, but it was moving. Its wings flexed with the sound of grinding stone. Its eyes glowed green, the gargle. It is smaller than I remember, Vincenzo muttered. It's the size of a truck, I whispered back. Yes, small. Okay, I said. What's the plan? Plan A, Vincenzo said. I distract them. You kill Raphael. Plan B. We die screaming. I like Plan A, I said. Good, because I am going down there. Wait, what? He didn't wait, he jumped. He fell 5 stories. He landed in the center of the courtyard with a sound like a bomb going off. Dust flew, vampires shouted. Vincenzo stood up from the crater he'd made in the asphalt. He brushed dust off his vest. Good evening, gentlemen, he announced, his voice booming. I believe you are trespassing. The vampires froze. They looked at the king. They looked at the confidence, the power radiating off him. Kill him. Raphael screamed from the balcony above. He is one man. Kill him. The vampires charged, and Vincenzo danced. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. He moved like water. He dodged swords, caught spears, redirected attacks. He wasn't killing them. He was toying with them. He was buying time. Now his voice whispered in my head. I moved. I ran along the rooftop. I jumped to the opera house balcony. I landed silently behind Raphael. He was watching the fight below, laughing. He didn't hear me. Raphael, I said. He spun around. His eyes went wide. You, he hissed. You should be dead. I get that a lot, I said. I drew the silver sword. Let's finish this. Raphael was fast. Faster than the guards. Faster than sealers. He drew a rapier from his cane, a thin, needle-like blade that hummed with magical energy. You are an abomination, he spat, circling me. A mistake of nature. I'm an evolution, I corrected, mirroring his movement. You're just old. He lunged, the tip of the rapier aimed for my heart. I parried with the silver sword. Sparks flew. He was skilled. He fought with centuries of practice. Feint, thrust, parry, riposte. He was painting a picture with the blade, and I was the canvas. But I had something he didn't. I didn't get tired. Every clash of steel sent a jolt of energy through my arm. My muscles sang. My vision sharpened. I could see the sweat beading on his upper lip. I could hear his heart rate accelerating. You're slowing down, Raphael, I taunted. I am merely assessing, he panted. Below us, the battle raged. Vincenzo was holding his own, but the gargle had joined the fray. It swatted vampires aside like flies, stomping toward the king. Vincenzo was fast, but he couldn't hurt it. His punches bounced off its stone hide. "Your king is dying," Raphael sneered, glancing over the railing. "The gargle will crush him into paste." "Then I'd better hurry," I said. I attacked. I stopped fencing. I started brawling. I swung the heavy silver sword like a baseball bat. Clang, clang, clang. I battered his defense. I drove him back. I forced him against the stone railing of the balcony. "Wait," he screamed, dropping his rapier. "Wait, we can make a deal." "I already have a deal," I said. "Marriage of bone, remember." I kicked him in the chest. He flew over the railing. He screamed all the way down. He landed on the gargle. Crunch! The gargle roared in confusion, batting at the broken vampire on its back. Raphael slid off, limp. The other vampires froze. Their leader was down. Their paycheck was cancelled. "Vincenzo!" I shouted, jumping onto the railing. "Catch!" I threw the silver sword. It spun through the air, glinting in the moonlight. Vincenzo looked up. He saw the sword. He saw the gargle looming over him. He jumped. He caught the sword in midair. He landed on the gargle's shoulders. "Open wide," he snarled. He drove the sword down, straight into the glowing green eye of the beast. The gargle shrieked, a sound like tectonic plates grinding together. Green light exploded from its head. Cracks spread across its stone body. Vincenzo backflipped off as the monster crumbled into a pile of gravel. Silence fell over the courtyard. The remaining vampires looked at the pile of rocks. They looked at Raphael's broken body. They looked at Vincenzo, standing amidst the dust, holding a silver sword that smoked in his hand. It burned him, but he held it anyway. And then they looked up at me, standing on the balcony, glowing gold eyes, unburned, unbroken. "Leave," I said. My voice wasn't a shout. It was a command. It carried the weight of the blood moon. They ran. They didn't hesitate. They vanished into the night like smoke. The Daywalker revelation. Vincenzo climbed the stairs to the balcony. He was limping. His hand was burned from the sword hilt. His clothes were shredded, but he was smiling. That, he said, was satisfactory. "We won," I said, leaning against the stone railing. The adrenaline was fading, leaving me lightheaded. "We survived," he corrected. "There is a difference." He walked over to me. He took my hand, the one that had punched a lord and held a silver blade. "Your eyes," he said softly, "they are still gold." "Is that bad?" "It is, unprecedented." He looked out over the city. The sun was beginning to rise. The sky was turning purple and orange. "The sun is coming," he said. "I must retreat." "I'll stay," I said. "I'll watch over you." He looked at me. The fear was gone from his eyes, replaced by something deeper, something eternal. "My queen," he whispered. He knelt. Right there on the dirty balcony, surrounded by the ruins of the opera house, the king of vampires knelt before the former cleaning girl. "I pledge my sword," he said. "I pledge my blood. I pledge my eternal life." He looked up at me. "Lead us, Allyssa. Lead us into the day." I looked at the sunrise. I felt the warmth on my face. I felt the power in my veins. I wasn't a victim anymore. I wasn't a tribute. I wasn't even a consort. I was the Daywalker, and the war had just begun. The cliffhanger. We walked back to the safe house as the city woke up. I put Vincenzo in his crate. I watched him sleep. Then I sat by the window watching the morning traffic. My phone buzzed. I stared at it. I hadn't looked at my phone in 3 days. It was in the pocket of the tactical vest I'd stolen. I pulled it out. A known number. I answered. "Hello." "Allyssa," a voice said. It wasn't Raphael. It wasn't Sealer's. It was a woman's voice. Cool, professional, terrifying. "This is the Vatican," she said. "We saw the satellite footage of the opera house." I tightened my grip on the phone. "Who is this?" "I'm the one who hunts anomalies," she said. "You held silver. You walked in the sun. You aren't a vampire, Allyssa." "What am I?" "You're a cure," she said, "and we're coming to harvest you." Click, the line went dead. I looked out the window. A black van was turning the corner down the street. Then another, then another. I stood up. I picked up the silver sword. "Wake up, Vincenzo," I said to the crate. We have company. The Vatican thinks they can harvest Allyssa for a cure. They're about to find out that she's not the medicine, she's the poison. Make sure you're subscribed for episode 3, because the Inquisition is here and they brought tanks. They didn't knock. The Inquisition doesn't knock. They don't announce themselves. They don't shout warnings. They just turn your world into a cage. I was standing by the window of the safe house, watching the black vans swarm the street below. There were 6 of them, armored, unmarked. They moved with a terrifying synchronized precision, blocking the exits, securing the perimeter. "Vincenzo," I said. My voice was calm. It was the calm of a hurricane eye. "Wake up." The crate in the corner burst open. Vincenzo rose in a blur of motion, his charcoal suit dusty but his eyes already burning red. He smelled the danger before he saw it. "Hunters?" he asked, grabbing his tactical vest. "Worse," I said. "The church." I watched a woman step out of the lead van. She wore a pristine white trench coat that looked impossibly clean against the grime of the industrial district. She didn't look like a soldier. She looked like a CEO or an executioner. "Carolina," the voice on the phone. She looked up. She looked straight at the blacked-out window where I was standing. She couldn't see me, but she smiled anyway. It was a smile that promised pain. "They aren't here to kill us," I realized, my grip tightening on the silver sword. "They're here to collect." "Then let us show them the price of admission," Vincenzo growled. He moved to stand beside me. The king and his consort, the vampire and the daywalker, we were powerful, we were legendary. But as the first canister of gas smashed through the window, hissing with a sickly, sweet green smoke, I realized something terrifying. Legends can still be put in a cage. The gas hit us instantly. It wasn't tear gas, it wasn't smoke, it was something else. A heavy, oily vapor that smelled of lavender and chloroform. Vincenzo coughed. It was a wet, hacking sound that shook his whole frame. He dropped to one knee, clutching his chest. "Vervain," he gasped. "Concentrated, aerosol, vervain." Vervain, poison to vampires. It burned their lungs, weakened their blood, cut them off from their power. I breathed it in. It tasted bitter, unpleasant, but I didn't cough, I didn't fall. "I'm fine," I said, looking at my hands. "It doesn't hurt me." "Daywalker," Vincenzo wheezed, his skin turning a sickly grey. "Your human blood filters it." Crash! The steel doors of the warehouse blew inward, not from an explosion, but from a sonic ram. The concussion wave rattled my teeth. 12 men poured into the room. They weren't wearing the tactical SWAT gear Sealers' men had worn. They were wearing white hazmat suits with gold crosses painted on the chest. They carried rifles that didn't look like guns. They looked like medical equipment. Dart guns. "Target 1 secure," a voice crackled over a loudspeaker. "Target 2 is resisting. Engage." Vincenzo roared. It was a weak, strangled sound, but it was still the roar of a king. He launched himself at the nearest hazmat soldier. He was slow. The gas was killing him. The soldier didn't even flinch. He fired a single dart. It hit Vincenzo in the neck. Vincenzo convulsed. He crashed to the floor, sliding across the concrete until he hit a support pillar. He didn't get up. "No." I screamed. I moved. I was fast, faster than they expected. I crossed the distance in a heartbeat, swinging the silver sword. The blade sliced through the barrel of the first rifle. I kicked the soldier in the chest, sending him flying back through the open door. "Don't touch him," I shouted. My eyes were burning. I could feel the gold light flooding my vision. The soldiers hesitated. They looked at me, standing in a cloud of poison gas, holding a silver sword glowing with golden energy. "Target 2 is anomalous," the radio crackled. "Readings are off the charts." "Subdue her," a calm female voice ordered. "But do not damage the blood. The blood is the asset." They fired 12 darts all at once. I swatted 3 of them out of the air. I dodged 4 more. But I couldn't dodge them all. 2 hit my shoulder. 1 hit my thigh. I yanked them out instantly. I didn't feel pain. I felt rage. "Is that it?" I taunted, taking a step forward. "I'm the daywalker. Your toys don't work on." The world tilted. My knees hit the floor. It wasn't poison. It was a sedative. A massive elephant-stopping dose of tranquilizer mixed with something cold and magical. My vision blurred. The gold light faded. I saw boots walking toward me. Pristine white boots. Carolina stopped in front of me. She crouched down. She wasn't wearing a hazmat suit. She didn't fear the gas. She reached out and touched my cheek. Her hand was warm, human. "You aren't a daywalker, Allyssa," she whispered. "You're a petri dish." I tried to swing the sword. My arm wouldn't move. "Sleep now," she said. "Science waits for no one." The last thing I saw was Vincenzo, unconscious against the pillar, being dragged away by men in white. Then the black vans swallowed us whole. If you want to see how a daywalker breaks out of a maximum security Vatican prison, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. The Inquisition thinks they've won. They have no idea what they just locked in a cage with them. I woke up to the sound of dripping water. Drip, drip, drip. It was annoying. I opened my eyes. I was staring at a white ceiling. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, buzzing like angry wasps. I tried to sit up. Clank, I was restrained. My wrists were cuffed to the arms of a metal chair. My ankles were shackled to the legs. The chair was bolted to the floor. I looked around. The room was a glass box. Literally. 4 walls of thick, reinforced glass. Beyond the glass, I could see a laboratory. Computers, centrifuges, men in white coats moving with quiet efficiency. "Vincenzo," I croaked. My throat was dry. "He is not here." The voice came from a speaker in the ceiling. I looked forward. Standing on the other side of the glass wall was a man. He was young, maybe 30, with wire-rimmed glasses and hair that was losing its battle with recession. He held a clipboard. "Where is he?" I demanded. I pulled at the cuffs. The metal groaned but didn't break. Reinforced steel, maybe titanium. "Subject 1 is in holding," the man said. He didn't look at my face. He looked at the monitors displaying my vitals. "His condition is stable for a leech." "I'm going to kill you," I said calmly. The man looked up. He smiled. It wasn't a cruel smile. It was the smile of a man who has just discovered a new species of beetle. "I am Dr. Gideon," he said, "and you are fascinating." He tapped the glass. "Silver alloy restraints, UV floodlights ready to deploy, and yet your heart rate is steady. Your skin shows no irritation. You are metabolizing the sedative at a rate of 400%, above human norm." He wrote something down. "Tell me, Allyssa, when you stand in the sun, does it hurt or does it tickle?" "Let me out," I said, "and I'll show you exactly what it does." Gideon chuckled. "Hostility, expected, phase 1 complete." He pressed a button on the console. A panel in the glass wall slid open. A robotic arm extended into my cell. It held a syringe. The needle was thick. "Phase 2, Gideon said. "Collection." "Don't," I warned. "My blood isn't yours." "Your blood," Gideon corrected, "is the property of the church. It is the miracle we have prayed for." The arm moved closer. I strained against the cuffs. I summoned the strength that had punched Raphael through a wall. I pulled. The bolts in the floor shrieked. The metal of the chair twisted. Gideon's eyes went wide. He hit a panic button. Flash. The UV lights in the ceiling slammed on. It wasn't sunlight. It was concentrated, weaponized radiation. It hit me like a hammer. I screamed. It didn't burn my skin, not like it burned Vincenzo, but it hurt. It felt like being microwaved from the inside. My strength evaporated. My muscles seized. I slumped in the chair, gasping. "Fascinating," Gideon murmured. "Immune to surface burns, but susceptible to systemic radiation shock." Noted. The robotic arm moved in while I was paralyzed. The needle pierced my arm. I watched my blood flow into the tube. It wasn't red anymore. It was gold. Bright, liquid gold. Gideon stared at it. He looked like he was seeing God. "The ichor," he whispered. "The cure." They took a pint. It left me dizzy, weak, and furious. When the robotic arm retracted, the UV lights dimmed. Gideon left with his prize, cradling the vial of gold blood like a newborn baby. I sat in the silence, breathing hard. I needed to think. I checked the bond. It was faint, muffled, like trying to hear a radio station through static. Vincenzo. I projected the thought. Nothing, just a dull, throbbing ache in the back of my mind. They had him sedated, or blocked. Comfortable. Carolina walked into the lab. She had shed her white coat. Now she wore a grey suit that looked expensive and severe. She pulled up a chair on the other side of the glass and sat down. "You look terrible," she said. "You look like a fascist," I replied. She smiled. I prefer protector of the faith. But labels are flexible. She crossed her legs. Do you know why we hunted you, Allyssa? Do you know why we didn't just put a stake in your heart back at the warehouse? Because you want my blood, I said. Because we are losing, she said. Her smile vanished. The war against the undead, we are losing it. For centuries we held the line, but the Covens are getting smarter. They are infiltrating governments, banks, tech companies. She leaned forward. We needed a weapon, a reset button, and then we saw you. She pulled out a tablet. She showed me a grainy video. It was from a security camera near the opera house. It showed me on the balcony, glowing, holding the silver sword. A vampire who can walk in the day, she said softly. A vampire who can touch silver. Do you have any idea what that represents? A nightmare, I guessed. A vaccine, she said. If we can isolate what makes you immune, we can inject it into our soldiers. We can create hunters who can fight vampires on their own terms, super soldiers, immune to mental compulsion, strong enough to rip a leech's head off. She tapped the glass. You aren't a cure for vampires, Allyssa. You're an upgrade for humans. I stared at her. You want to make hybrids, I said. You want to make monsters to fight monsters. Fire to fight fire, she corrected. It is the only way. And what happens to me? I asked. Once you have your vaccine. Carolina stood up. She looked at me with zero empathy. Once we have the formula, she said, we destroy the source. We can't have a queen running around loose, can we? She turned to leave. Oh, she added, pausing at the door, your king is awake. He's noisy. Gideon is going to see if his blood reacts to yours. It should be a fascinating experiment. The bond flared, a spike of panic. Not mine, his. He was awake, and he was terrified. Don't touch him, I shouted, slamming my hands against the arms of the chair. Save your energy, Carolina said. You'll need it for the next harvest. Gideon came back an hour later. He looked excited, manic. The I-core is stable. He announced to the room, though I was the only one listening. It doesn't coagulate, it glows. He wheeled a cart over to the glass wall. On the cart was a monitor. It showed a live feed from another cell. My heart stopped. Vincenzo was strapped to a table. He was shirtless. His chest was covered in sensors. He looked pale, gaunt, his ribs showing through his skin. The burns from the UV grenade hadn't fully healed. They were raw, angry red patches. Vincenzo, I shouted. He couldn't hear me. Subject 1, Gideon narrated into a recorder. Ancient vampire, class 5 entity. Currently suffering from severe vermin toxicity and malnutrition. He picked up a syringe. It was filled with gold liquid. My blood. Hypothesis, Gideon said. The Daywalker blood contains a retroviral agent that overwrites the vampiric curse. Injection should neutralize the vampiric cells and restore human function. No, I screamed. It won't cure him. It's vampire blood. It's supercharged vampire blood. Gideon ignored me. He pressed a button. In the video, a mechanical arm lowered toward Vincenzo. The needle hovered over his chest. Vincenzo's eyes fluttered open. He saw the needle. He saw the gold liquid. He thrashed. The straps strained. Don't, I begged. Gideon, listen to me. It's toxic. It's too strong. It will kill him. Administering dose, Gideon said calmly. The needle plunged into Vincenzo's heart. The plunger depressed. Gold blood entered his system. For a second, nothing happened. Then Vincenzo arched his back. His mouth opened in a silent scream. His veins turned black, not blue, black. The blackness spread from his chest, racing up his neck, down his arms. Smoke began to rise from his skin. Reaction is violent, Gideon noted, frowning. Interesting. Vincenzo's eyes rolled back. He began to convulse. I felt it. Through the bond, I felt fire. I felt acid. I felt his blood boiling. It wasn't a cure. It wasn't an upgrade. It was poison. My blood was attacking his ancient blood. It was a war inside his veins. Stop it, I shrieked. You're killing him. Heart rate is spiking, Gideon muttered. 300 beats per minute, 400. Critical failure imminent. He looked at me through the glass. It seems the Daywalker strain is incompatible with Class 5 biology. It acts as a necrotizing agent. He shrugged. Pity, he was a good specimen. In the video, Vincenzo went still. His head lolled to the side. The monitor flatlined. Beep. The bond went silent. The silence was deafening. It was a physical blow. The connection, the golden chain, the presence that had been in my head for weeks. Gone. Gideon wrote something on his clipboard. Subject 1 deceased. Phase 3 failed, preparing for disposal. I stared at the screen. I stared at Vincenzo's still body. Something inside me broke, not my heart. That had broken years ago. What broke was the lock on the door I'd kept shut since the turning. The door that held back the other thing I had become. My vision went red, then gold, then white. The chair I was strapped to started to vibrate. The bolts in the floor rattled. Gideon looked up, he frowned. Subject 2, your vitals are. He stopped, because the glass wall between us, 3 inches of reinforced, bulletproof polycarbonate, was starting to crack. Vincenzo is dead. The cure is a lie. And Allyssa is about to show Dr. Gideon what happens when you break a queen's heart. Hit that like button if you want to see the lab burn. Gideon dropped his clipboard. He stared at the spiderweb fracture spreading across the glass. It wasn't possible. That glass was designed to hold a werewolf. It was designed to withstand a grenade. It wasn't designed to withstand grief. Activate suppression. Gideon shouted, scrambling backward. Hit her with everything. The UV lights slammed on again. This time I didn't scream. I didn't slump. I absorbed it. I felt the radiation hitting my skin, and instead of pain, I turned it into fuel. I pulled the energy into my core, mixing it with the rage, mixing it with the terrible, howling silence where Vincenzo used to be. More power. Gideon yelled. The lights whined. They grew brighter, blindingly white. My skin began to glow, not metaphorically. Literally, I was glowing like a star. The gold light poured out of my pores, illuminating the cell, casting long, sharp shadows. I looked at the cuffs holding my wrists. No, I whispered. I flexed my arms. Snap. The metal didn't bend, it shattered. The chains exploded outward like shrapnel. I stood up. Gideon was running for the door. He punched a code into the keypad. The heavy steel door began to slide shut. I walked to the glass wall. I placed my hand on the crack. Open, I said. I pushed. The wall didn't just break. It disintegrated. Thousands of shards of bulletproof glass exploded outward, a glittering wave of destruction. They hit Gideon before he could get through the door. He fell, screaming, cut by 1,000 tiny knives. I stepped out of the cell. My bare feet crunched on the glass. I walked over to Gideon. He was crawling, leaving a trail of red. He looked up at me. His glasses were broken. His face was a mask of terror. Please, he begged. It was science. It was for the greater good. Where is he? I asked. My voice sounded like tectonic plates grinding together. Disposal, Gideon wept. Level B, the incinerator. Incinerator. They were going to burn him. They were going to burn my king. I looked at Gideon. I looked at the vials of my gold blood on the cart, the blood that had killed Vincenzo. I picked one up. You like science? I asked. I uncorked the vial. Let's see if it cures stupidity. I forced the liquid down his throat. Gideon gagged. He clawed at his neck. His veins turned black instantly. He screamed, a sound that was more animal than human, as the necrotizing agent ate him from the inside out. I didn't watch him die. I didn't care. I turned and ran for the elevator. The elevator was slow, too slow. I punched the ceiling hatch open and climbed into the shaft. I looked down. It was a long drop. I jumped. I fell past 3 floors. I grabbed the cable as I neared the bottom, the friction burning my hands, slowing my descent just enough to keep me from splattering. I landed on the roof of the level B car. I ripped the hatch open and dropped inside. The doors opened. Level B was hot. It smelled of sulfur and ash. The disposal unit. 2 guards in hazmat suits were pushing a gurney down the hall. On the gurney was a black body bag. Hey, I shouted. They turned. They saw a glowing girl covered in glass dust and rage. They reached for their tranquilizer rifles. I didn't give them the chance. I was across the hall in a blur. I grabbed the first guard by his helmet and slammed his head into the wall. The visor cracked. He slumped. The second guard fired. The dart hit my chest. I ignored it. I grabbed his rifle. I snapped it in half. I kicked him in the knee, shattering the joint. He fell screaming. I turned to the gurney. My hands were shaking. I unzipped the bag. Vincenzo. He was grey, still, cold. His chest was motionless. The black veins were stark against his pale skin, a roadmap of the poison that had killed him. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." I touched his face. "Ice, you promised," I said, my voice breaking. "You promised to protect me. You can't protect me if you're dead." I checked for a pulse. Nothing. I put my ear to his chest. Silence. He was gone. The bond was gone. I sank to my knees. The grief hit me then, heavier than the UV lights, heavier than the silver. It crushed me. I laid my head on his chest and sobbed. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have let them take you." My tears fell onto his skin. They were hot. They glowed faintly gold. One tear rolled down his chest. It hit the puncture wound over his heart, the spot where Gideon had injected the poison. The tear didn't roll off. It sank in. Thump, I froze. I lifted my head. Thump, it was faint, weak, but it was there, his heart. I stared at the wound. The black veins around it were receding. The gold light from my tear was spreading, chasing the darkness away. My blood killed him, but my tears. "Emotion," I whispered. "The magic is tied to emotion. Gideon used cold, extracted blood. Dead blood. But this..." I bit my lip, hard, until it bled. I kissed him. I pressed my bleeding lip to his cold, grey mouth. I poured everything I felt into it, my love, my grief, my desperate need for him to come back. "Please," I begged silently, "come back." I felt the blood slide into his mouth. For a long moment nothing happened. Then he gasped. It was a ragged, desperate intake of air. His eyes snapped open. They weren't red. They weren't black. They were gold. Vincenzo sat up, coughing. He clutched his chest. The black veins were gone, replaced by a faint golden lattice under his skin. He looked at me. He looked at his hands. "Allyssa." His voice was rough. I was nowhere. I was in the void. "You were dead," I sobbed, hugging him. "You were dead, you idiot." He wrapped his arms around me. He felt warm, warmer than he had ever been. "Your blood," he whispered against my hair. "It burned. It felt like dying." "I know," I said. "Gideon, he injected you, but then I." "You brought me back," he said. He pulled back to look at me. His gold eyes searched mine. I felt it, a pull, like a hook in my soul. He touched my face. "You didn't just heal me, Allyssa. You changed me." He stood up. He moved differently. Less like a statue, more like a cat, fluid, warm. He looked at the overhead lights, harsh, industrial fluorescence. Usually vampires squinted under them. He didn't. "The light," he said. "It does not hurt." "You have my eyes," I said. "Gold." "We are the same now," he said wonderingly. "Daywalkers, both of us." "Wait," I said. "If you're a daywalker, and I'm a daywalker." We looked at each other. The realization hit us both at the same time. "We are a new species," Vincenzo said. A slow, dangerous smile spread across his face. "And we are very, very angry." "Alert, alert." The intercom blared. Red lights began to flash. "Subject 2 has escaped containment. Locked uninitiated. All units to level B." Vincenzo looked at the door. He looked at the two unconscious guards. "They are coming," he said. "Good," I said. I reached down and picked up the guard's sidearm. It felt heavy and right in my hand. "Are you ready for round 2, my king?" Vincenzo straightened his tattered suit. He rolled his neck. "I am not a king anymore," he said. "Kings sit on thrones." He extended his claws. They gleamed gold. "I am a god," he said, "and I am ready to smite." You thought Vincenzo was powerful before. Now he's a golden-eyed god with a vendetta. If you're ready to see the Vatican get wrecked, drop a comment saying, "Long live the king below." We moved through the lower levels like a wildfire. Vincenzo wasn't weakened anymore. He was amplified. The new blood in his veins made him faster, stronger, and meaner. He didn't just break bones, he shattered them. I kept pace with him. We fought back to back, a whirlwind of gold eyes and violence. We reached the armory. It was guarded by 10 men in heavy riot gear. Suppressing fire. The captain shouted. Bullets hailed around us. "Cover me," Vincenzo said. He didn't wait for an answer. He charged. He didn't dodge the bullets. He took them. They hit his chest and flattened, falling to the floor like hail. He was immune. The Daywalker blood made his skin impenetrable to lead. He reached the line. He grabbed 2 shields and ripped them out of the soldier's hands. He used them like cymbals, clapping them together with a soldier's head in between. Clang! I vaulted over him, firing the sidearm I'd stolen. I took out the lights. The room plunged into darkness. Night vision. The captain yelled, too late. In the dark we glowed. We were beacons of terrifying light. I dropped into the middle of the squad. I swept the leg of the nearest man, then punched the one behind him. Clear! Vincenzo shouted. The last guard fell. We stood in the ruin of the armory. Vincenzo wiped blood from his cheek. We need a way out, he said. The main elevator is locked down. The ventilation shaft, I said, pointing to a massive grate on the wall. It leads to the surface. It is small, Vincenzo noted, eyeing it dubiously. We'll fit. If we don't mind getting dirty. I mind, he said, brushing dust off his lapel. But I mind dying more. It was tight, hot, and smelled of oil. We climbed for what felt like miles. Finally, we saw light. I kicked the grate open. We tumbled out into a parking garage. Fresh air, rain, freedom. We made it, I gasped, leaning against a concrete pillar. Not yet, Vincenzo said. He was looking at the exit ramp. A black van was blocking it, and leaning against the van was a woman, Carolina. She wasn't alone. She was flanked by 4 men who weren't wearing hazmat suits. They weren't wearing tactical gear. They were wearing red robes. Cardinals, Vincenzo hissed. The exorcists. Going somewhere? Carolina asked. She looked calm, too calm. We're leaving, I said. Move the van. I can't do that, Allyssa, she said. You broke my lab. You killed my scientist. You stole my specimen. She looked at Vincenzo. She saw his eyes. Gold, she whispered. He turned. She smiled. It was her ecstatic, terrifying smile. It spreads, she said. The infection spreads. If we let you leave, you will create an army, a legion of monsters who cannot be killed by the sun. She gestured to the cardinals. They raised their hands. They began to chant. It wasn't a spell. It was a frequency, a low, humming vibration that made my teeth ache. Sonic resonance, Vincenzo warned. They use it to shatter crystal and bone. The sound hit us. It was agony. It felt like my skull was splitting open. I fell to my knees, screaming. Vincenzo roared, clutching his head. Subdue them, Carolina ordered. Cut off their heads. We can study the bodies later. The cardinals advanced, chanting louder. The pain was blinding. I couldn't think. I couldn't move. Allyssa, Vincenzo gasped. The bond. What? The bond, he shouted over the noise. Use the bond, push the pain to me. No, I cried. It will kill you. I am strong, he yelled. Do it. I didn't want to, but the cardinals were drawing swords, silver swords. I closed my eyes. I focused on the golden chain connecting us. I grabbed the pain, the screaming, white-hot agony in my head, and I shoved it down the line. Vincenzo screamed, but I was free. The pain vanished. My head cleared. I opened my eyes. The cardinals were 10 feet away. I moved. I didn't have a weapon. I didn't need one. Grabbed the first cardinal's head. I twisted. Snap. The chanting faltered. The sound wavered. Vincenzo stopped screaming. He looked up panting, sweat dripping from his face. Kill them. He roared. We tore through them. The cardinals were magic users, not fighters. Without their sonic weapon, they were slow. We left them broken on the concrete. Carolina watched. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She reached into her coat. Don't, I warned, stepping over a body. She pulled out a detonator. For the faith, she whispered. She pressed the button. The parking garage didn't just explode. It collapsed. Charges on the support pillars detonated in sequence. The ceiling came down. Vincenzo! I tackled him. I threw us under the black van just as tons of concrete slammed into the roof. The world went dark. Dust choked me. The noise was deafening. Then silence. Vincenzo! I coughed. Are you alive? I am squished, a muffled voice replied. I pushed against the debris. It wouldn't move. We were buried. We are trapped, Vincenzo said. It will take them hours to dig us out. By then, the sun will be up. The sun doesn't hurt us, I reminded him. No, but the rest of the Vatican army does. He shifted, trying to find a comfortable position in the cramped space under the chassis. His hand found mine. We have time, he said softly. While we wait. Time for what? To talk, he said, about what happens next. Next, I laughed bitterly. We dig out, we run, we hide. No, he said, we do not hide, not anymore. His gold eyes glowed in the dark. You said you wanted to destroy the Coven. We did. You said you wanted to survive the church. We have. He squeezed my hand. What do you want now, Allyssa? I thought about it. I thought about the power in my veins. I thought about the fear in Carolina's eyes when she realized what we were. I want them to stop, I said. I want them to be afraid. Then we must give them a reason, Vincenzo said. We must build a kingdom of daywalkers. You want to turn others. Only the worthy, he said. The ones who have been discarded. The ones like you were. He looked at me with intense devotion. We will make a new world, my queen, a world where we do not burn. And the Vatican. We will burn them instead. It took us 4 hours to dig out. We punched through 3 feet of concrete. We clawed through rebar and rubble. We emerged into the dawn. The parking garage was a crater. The building above it was gone. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance. Police, fire, maybe more hunters. We stood on the pile of rubble, covered in dust and blood. The sun hit us. We glowed. We stood there, hand in hand, 2 golden gods in the wreckage of the old world. They will see us, I said. The news helicopters, the satellites. Let them look, Vincenzo said. Let them see the future. He turned to me. He brushed a smudge of dirt from my cheek. Where to now? The Western Reach, I said. Raphael is dead. His territory is open. His vampires are leaderless. We go to claim them. We go to offer them a choice, I said. Join us or burn. Vincenzo smiled. It was the smile of a king who had finally found a war worth fighting. Lead on. The Western Reach was chaos. When an alpha dies, the pack fractures. Vampires are territorial creatures. Without Raphael to hold the leash, his lieutenants had turned on each other. We walked into the middle of a civil war. It was happening in a nightclub called The Pulse. Fitting. We kicked the doors open. Inside, it was a brawl. Vampires were tearing each other apart over who got the big chair. Silence. Vincenzo roared. The fighting stopped. They looked at the door. They saw Vincenzo, the first king presumed dead or dormant, and they saw me. Who claims this territory? Vincenzo demanded. A large vampire with a broken nose stepped forward. I do, I am Marcus, Raphael's second. Raphael is dead, I said. I threw him off a balcony. Marcus laughed. You, a human. I walked up to him. I didn't draw a weapon. I didn't need one. I grabbed his hand. I squeezed. His bones crunched. He fell to his knees, howling. I am not human, I said, my eyes flashing gold, and I am not asking for your permission. I looked around the room. I am Allyssa. This is Vincenzo. We are the Daywalkers. Murmurs, they had heard the rumors, the anomaly, the cure. The church is coming, I announced. They have tanks, they have sonic weapons, they have a mandate to wipe us out. I let go of Marcus's hand. He cradled it, looking at me with fear. You can stay here and fight over scraps, I said. And when the sun comes up, you can hide in your basements and hope they don't find you. I paused. Or you can join us. Join you? A female vampire asked from the back. To do what? To evolve, Vincenzo said. He stepped forward, radiating power. To take back the day. He held up his hand. He summoned a small flame in his palm, a trick of old magic. My consort's blood changes us, he said. It breaks the curse. It gives us the sun. The room went silent. The sun, the forbidden dream. Prove it, Marcus rasped. Meet us at dawn, I said. On the roof. If we burn, you can have the territory. If we don't. I smiled. You bow. Dawn came. 50 vampires stood on the roof of the Pulse. They were terrified. They were huddled in the shadows of the ventilation units, watching the eastern horizon. Vincenzo and I stood in the center of the roof, exposed. The sky turned pink, then orange, then gold. The sun crested the horizon. The light hit us. The vampires flinched. They expected us to scream. They expected ash. We didn't scream. We shined. The gold light of the sun mixed with the gold light in our veins. We looked like angels or demons of light. Vincenzo turned to the crowd. He opened his arms. "Behold," he said, "the new age." One by one, the vampires stepped out of the shadows. Some burned. They weren't strong enough. They screamed and retreated. But others. Marcus stepped into the light. He hissed. Smoke rose from his skin, but he didn't burn. He looked at his hands. He looked at the sun. He started to laugh, a wild, impossible laugh. "It works," he whispered. "It works." The others surged forward, a dozen of them, the strongest, the ones who could survive the transition. They stood in the sun. They looked at us with reverence, with worship. "We have an army," Vincenzo whispered to me. "No," I said, looking at the city below, where sirens were wailing and black vans were gathering. "We have a beginning." My phone buzzed. I pulled it out. Unknown number. "Carolina," I answered. "You survived," she said. She sounded impressed. "And you're recruiting." "I'm building a nation," I corrected. "Nation," she laughed. "Allyssa, look up." I looked up. High above the city, a drone was circling. It wasn't a surveillance drone. It was armed. "The church has authorized a tactical strike," Carolina said. "If we can't have the cure, no one can." A missile dropped from the drone. It streaked toward the roof. "Vincenzo!" I shouted. I grabbed him. I grabbed Marcus. "Jump." We dove off the roof as the missile hit. The explosion turned the world white. The Vatican just dropped a missile on a rooftop full of vampires. Did Allyssa survive? Did the army survive? And what happens when a daywalker declares war on the entire human world? Make sure you're subscribed for episode 4, The War for the Crown. The shadows are gone. The war is in the light now. The missile didn't kill us. It just made us famous. I saw the warhead hit. I saw the flash of white fire that was hotter than the sun. I felt the shockwave turn the concrete roof of the nightclub into dust beneath my feet. Any normal creature would have vaporized. Any normal vampire would have been ash before the sound even reached them. But we weren't normal. We were daywalkers. I grabbed Vincenzo. Vincenzo grabbed Marcus. We fell into the inferno together, wrapped in a cocoon of golden light. The world burned around us. Steel melted, stones shattered. The sound was a roar that erased all thought. And then, silence. I opened my eyes. I was lying in a crater. The nightclub was gone. The city block was a smoking ruin. Sirens wailed in the distance, thousands of them. I stood up. My clothes were gone, burned away by the heat. My skin was glowing with a fierce, blinding gold aura. I looked down at myself, not a scratch, not a burn. "Vincenzo," I called out. A pile of rubble shifted. A hand punched through the concrete. Vincenzo climbed out. He was naked, covered in grey dust, his eyes burning like twin stars. He looked like a god birthed from the earth. "That," he said, spitting out a mouthful of gravel, "was rude." "They dropped a missile on us," I said, "in the middle of the city." "They are desperate," Vincenzo said. He looked around, and they missed. We heard a noise, a whirring sound. I looked up. News helicopters, 3 of them, circling the smoke column like vultures. Their cameras were pointed straight at us. "Allyssa," Vincenzo said softly. "The masquerade, it is broken." I looked at the cameras. I looked at the devastation the Vatican had caused just to kill 3 people. I didn't hide. I didn't run. I walked to the edge of the crater. I looked straight into the lens of the nearest helicopter. I raised my hand, and I let my claws extend. "Good," I said. "Let them watch." The footage went global in 10 minutes. Terror attack in the Western Reach. Angels spotted in the fire. Secret military experiment gone wrong. The internet broke. We didn't care. We were busy raiding a high-end boutique 3 blocks away because walking around naked was bad for morale. "This is silk," Marcus grumbled, pulling on a designer suit that was 2 sizes too small for his massive frame. "It itches." "It's better than dust," I said, zipping up a black leather jumpsuit I'd found on a mannequin. It fit like a second skin. I grabbed a trench coat to cover the tactical vest I'd salvaged from the wreckage. "Vincenzo, stood by the window, watching the news feed on a stolen television. "The Vatican is spinning it," he said. "They claim we are biological terrorists. They say the explosion was a chemical weapon we detonated." "Of course they are," I said, strapping my silver sword to my back. "They can't admit they bombed their own city to kill a ghost story." I walked over to him. He looked majestic in a black turtleneck and slacks, despite the fact that we were looting a store. "What is the play, my queen?" he asked. "We have exposed ourselves. The humans will hunt us. The church will send more missiles." "We need an army," I said. "A real one, not just 12 survivors." "Genevieve," Vincenzo said. The name tasted sour in his mouth. "She holds the Council of the South, the old guard. She has 500 vampires under her command." "She hates you," Marcus pointed out helpfully. "She thinks you're a relic." "She hates me," Vincenzo agreed, "but she loves power." He looked at me. His gold eyes gleamed. "If we show her what we are, if we show her the sun." "She'll bow," I finished. "Or she will try to kill us and take the power for herself," Marcus added. "Let her try," I said. I flexed my hand. The skin glowed gold. "I threw a lord through a wall yesterday. I'm ready for a lady." If you're ready to see Allyssa take over the vampire underworld, make sure you're subscribed. The masquerade is over. Now, the conquest begins. Vatican black site, location unknown. Carolina watched the news feed. She watched the golden figures emerge from the fire. She watched them look at the camera with defiance. She didn't scream. She didn't throw things. She picked up a phone. "Initiate phase 2, she said. "Ma'am," a voice on the other end hesitated. "Phase 2 is experimental. The mortality rate is 98%. "We don't need them to live long," Carolina said coldly. "We just need them to kill." She walked down a long, white hallway. She stopped in front of a heavy steel door marked biohazard. She swiped her keycard. The door hissed open. Inside, chained to the walls, were 20 men. They were hunters, volunteers, fanatics who had pledged their lives to the cause, but they didn't look like men anymore. Their veins were black. Their eyes were white, rolled back in their heads. Foam dripped from their mouths. They thrashed against the chains, growling like rabid dogs. They had been injected with the failed serum. The necrotic blood Gideon had harvested from Vincenzo's corpse. It hadn't killed them, not yet. It had turned them into ghouls. "Abner," Carolina said, stepping in front of the largest one. The creature snapped its teeth at her. It didn't recognize its own name. It only knew hunger. "Can you hear me?" she asked. Abner roared. He pulled at the chains. The metal groaned. "Excellent," Carolina whispered. She turned to the scientist beside her, a terrified young man named Jeremy. "Give them the stimulant," she ordered. "Wake them up fully, then drop them in the south." "The south, ma'am." "The vampire court," she said. "Genevieve's stronghold. If the Daywalkers want an army, let's give them a war to fight." She looked back at Abner. "Kill everything that isn't human," she commanded. Abner howled. It was the sound of a soul breaking. We didn't sneak into Genevieve's territory. We drove. We stole a black SUV from the boutique's parking lot. Marcus drove. I sat in the passenger seat. Vincenzo sat in the back, looking like a CEO being driven to a merger. "The South is old money," Vincenzo explained. "Genevieve owns the banks, the real estate. She keeps the peace by bribing the human politicians." "So she's a politician," I said. "She is a spider," he corrected. "She sits in the center of her web and waits for flies." We pulled up to the gates of Elysium, a massive estate on the cliffs overlooking the ocean. It looked like Gatsby's house if Gatsby was a blood-drinking monster. The gates were closed. 4 guards stood outside. They wore tuxedos and carried assault rifles. Marcus rolled down the window. "Delivery," he grunted. "We didn't order anything," the guard said, raising his rifle. "We're delivering the future," I said. I stepped out of the car. It was noon. The sun was blazing. The guards froze. They stared at me. A woman standing in direct sunlight, not burning, not smoking. "Tell Genevieve," I said, my voice carrying over the sound of the ocean, "that the king is here," and he brought the sun with him. The guards exchanged looks. One of them spoke into a radio. The gates opened. We drove up the long, winding driveway. The grounds were manicured perfection, statues, fountains, roses that bloomed blood red. "She is watching," Vincenzo said, looking up at the mansion. "She feels us." "Good," I said. We stopped at the front door. It opened before we could knock. A butler stood there. He was human, a thrall. "Mistress Genevieve awaits you in the solarium," he said, bowing low. "The solarium?" I asked Vincenzo. "A room of glass," he said. "She uses it at night to watch the stars. In the day, she keeps the curtains drawn tight." "Not today," I said. The solarium was dark. Heavy velvet curtains blocked every inch of glass. The only light came from candles floating in bowls of water. Genevieve sat on a throne of woven gold. She wore a dress of white silk that looked like a shroud. She was surrounded by her court, 50 vampires, all beautiful, all deadly, all hiding in the dark. Quentin, her lieutenant, stood by her side. He looked at us with open hostility. "Vincenzo," Genevieve purred. "You survived the fire. How disappointing." "I am hard to kill," Vincenzo said, stepping into the room. "You should know this, Genevieve. You tried in 1812. "A misunderstanding," she dismissed. She looked at me. Her green, cat-like eyes narrowed. "And the pet, still alive. The Vatican must be slipping." "I'm not a pet," I said. "And the Vatican tried their best. They dropped a building on me. It didn't stick." "Brave words," Quentin sneered. "For a mongrel." "Careful, Quentin," Vincenzo warned. "She bites." "Why are you here?" Genevieve asked, bored. "If you seek sanctuary, my prices are high." "We don't want sanctuary," I said. "We want allegiance." Genevieve laughed. It sounded like glass breaking. "Allegiance to you, a fallen king and a human anomaly. I have an army, child. I have wealth. I have peace. Why would I bow to a homeless stray?" "Because your peace is a lie," I said. "The Vatican knows about us. They know about you. The missile wasn't just for me. It was a warning shot." "I have treaties," Genevieve said. "I pay the right people." "Money doesn't stop zealots," I said. "Carolina doesn't want bribes. She wants extinction." I took a step forward. "The old way is dead, Genevieve. Hiding in the dark, paying off politicians. It's over. The war has started." "And you offer what?" she asked. "Protection." "I offer evolution," I said. I walked to the nearest window. "Stop," Quentin shouted, drawing a sword. "Do not touch the curtains." "Are you afraid of the light, Quentin?" I asked. "We burn," he hissed. "You know this." "I don't," I said. I grabbed the heavy velvet fabric. "Join us," I said, looking back at the court, "or stay in the dark and die." The vampires of the south have lived in shadows for centuries. They think the sun is death. Allyssa is about to show them its power. Would you join the daywalkers or stay in the safety of the night? Let me know in the comments. I pulled the curtain. The sound of 50 vampires screaming is something you never forget. It's not a human scream. It's a frequency that rattles your teeth. It's the sound of a primal biological terror that has been hardwired into their DNA for millennia. When I ripped the curtain down, the sun didn't just enter the room. It assaulted it. A massive square of blinding white light slammed onto the marble floor. Vampires dove for cover. They overturned tables. They scrambled behind pillars. Quentin threw himself to the ground, shielding his face, hissing like a snake. Genevieve didn't move. She sat on her throne, frozen. The light stopped inches from her bare feet. She stared at it. She stared at the dust motes dancing in the beam, and she stared at me. I stood in the center of the light. I let it wash over me. I let it warm my skin. I raised my arms, feeling the power surge through my veins. My eyes glowed gold, bright enough to rival the sun itself. "Look at me," I commanded. Slowly, hesitantly, faces peered out from the shadows. They saw me, unburned, unbroken, radiant. "It's a trick," Quentin spat, though he didn't dare move closer. "Illusion magic." "Is it?" Vincenzo asked. He stepped out of the shadows. He walked into the light. He stood beside me. He took my hand. "No trick," he said. "Evolution." He looked at Genevieve. 500 years, he said softly. "I have not felt the warmth of the sun in 500 years. Do you remember, Genevieve?" Do you remember the feeling of heat on your face? Genevieve's mask cracked. For a second, she wasn't a haughty queen. She was a girl who missed the day. How? She whispered. Her blood, Vincenzo said. It kills the curse. It rewrites the law. He extended a hand to her. Come, he said. Join us in the light. Genevieve hesitated. She looked at the sun. She looked at her court, huddled in fear. She stood up. She took a step. Mistress, no, Quentin shouted. It will kill you. Genevieve ignored him. She reached out. Her pale hand hovered over the line of light. She trembled. Then she thrust her hand into the sun. Sizzle, she screamed. She yanked her hand back. Smoke rose from her fingertips. Her skin was blistered, red and angry. You lied. She shrieked, her eyes turning black with rage. You tried to assassinate me. It is not immediate, I said quickly. You have to turn. You have to take the blood. Poison, Quentin yelled. They are assassins sent by the church. The mood in the room shifted instantly. The awe vanished. The fear returned, curdling into aggression. 50 vampires drew weapons. Seize them. Genevieve ordered, clutching her burned hand. Drain them dry. We don't want to fight you, I said, drawing my silver sword. But we will. You are outnumbered, Quentin sneered, advancing with his own blade. 50-3. Odds are improving, Marcus grunted, cracking his knuckles. Quentin lunged. He was fast, but he was predictable. He fought like a fencer. I fought like a brawler who could punch through concrete. I sidestepped his thrust. I grabbed his blade with my bare hand. He stared at my palm, unhurt by the steel. How? He gasped. Calcium, I joked. I headbutted him. He crumbled. The rest of the court charged. It was chaos. Vampires were flying everywhere. Tables were smashed. The expensive vases Genevieve loved so much became shrapnel. Vincenzo was a blur. He didn't use a weapon. He used his environment. He threw a sofa at 3 attackers. He used a curtain rod as a spear, but there were too many of them. And unlike the Vatican soldiers, these were vampires. They healed. They got back up. We cannot kill them all. Vincenzo shouted over the din. We need them alive if we want an army. They aren't giving us much choice. I yelled back, kicking a vampire in the chest. Stop. Genevieve's voice cut through the noise. She was standing on her throne. She looked furious. You are destroying my house, she hissed. My beautiful house. She pointed at me. You say you offer evolution. You say you can give us the sun, but my hand burned. It's a process, I said, breathing hard. It requires a catalyst. What catalyst? Trust, I said, and emotion. I looked at Vincenzo. It didn't work on him until I brought him back, until we connected. Genevieve laughed bitterly. So I must love you to walk in the sun. That is a steep price. Not love, Vincenzo said. Fealty, a bond, the same bond that ties a knight to a king. He walked toward her, ignoring the guards who bristled at his approach. Submit, he said. Swear the oath, bind your life to ours, and the blood will accept you. Genevieve looked at him. She looked at her burned hand. She looked at the sunbeam still shining on the floor, a taunt, a promise. And if I refuse? Then you stay in the dark, Vincenzo said. And when the abominations come, you die in it. Genevieve frowned. Abominations? What are you talking about? Crash. The front doors of the mansion, massive, reinforced steel, flew off their hinges. They landed in the middle of the room, crushing a velvet ottoman. A roar shook the chandeliers. Standing in the doorway was a monster. It looked vaguely human, but it was 7 feet tall. Its skin was grey and distended, stretching over muscles that shouldn't exist. Its veins were black ropes pulsing under the surface. Abner. Behind him, 19 more creatures poured into the foyer. They didn't look like vampires. They looked like death. What in God's name is that? Quentin whispered. That, I said, raising my sword, is the Vatican's response. Abominations didn't pause, they didn't posture, they just attacked. They moved with a jerky, unnatural speed. They swarmed the nearest vampires, Genevieve's guards. It was a slaughter. The guards stabbed them. The abominations didn't care. They tore limbs off. They bit into necks, not to drink, but to kill. Defend the queen. Quentin shouted. Genevieve's court rallied. They formed a line. They fought bravely. but they were losing. They don't stop. A vampire screamed, hacking at an abomination's arm. The creature just laughed and grabbed him by the head. They feel no pain, Vincenzo noted, watching the carnage. They are dead nerves and adrenaline. He looked at me. We must help them. Why? I asked. They just tried to kill us. Because, he said, drawing a sword from a fallen guard, if we save them, they are ours. He charged. I followed. We hit the line like a battering ram. I took Abner. He was huge. He smelled of rot and chemicals. He swung a fist the size of a ham at my head. I ducked. I slashed his leg. The silver sword cut deep. Black blood sprayed. He didn't even flinch. He backhanded me. It felt like being hit by a truck. I flew across the room, crashing into a pillar. Allyssa, Vincenzo shouted. I'm fine. I yelled, scrambling up. My healing factor kicked in, knitting my ribs back together. Abner charged me. I focused. I looked at him, really looked at him. His eyes were white, blind. He was fighting by scent, by sound. Hey, ugly, I shouted. He turned toward me. I ran. Ran straight for the window, the open window, the sunbeam. Abner followed. He roared. He leaped. I slid underneath him. He sailed over me. He landed directly in the shaft of sunlight. For a vampire, sunlight is fire. For an abomination, a creature made of dead blood and necrotic serum, sunlight was explosive. His skin bubbled. He shrieked. He didn't just burn, he boiled. Within seconds, he was a pile of steaming goo on the floor. The sun. I shouted to the room. Use the sun. Drag them into the light. The vampires understood. Open the curtains. Quentin yelled. They ripped the velvet down. Light flooded the solarium. It was chaos. Vampires hissed, shielding their skin, burning slightly, but the abominations, they dissolved. One by one, the monsters were kicked, thrown, or lured into the beams. They popped like blisters. It was gross. It was effective. In 5 minutes, the invasion was over. The room was silent, save for the heavy breathing of the survivors and the sizzling sound of melting abominations. Genevieve stood on her throne. She was unharmed, but she was shaking. She looked at her decimated court, 20 dead, more wounded. She looked at the piles of goo. She looked at me. I stood in the center of the room, bathed in light, covered in black blood, holding my sword. The Vatican sent monsters to your door, I said. We sent them to hell. I walked toward her. I stopped at the foot of the dais. We protected you, I said. Now decide. Genevieve looked at Vincenzo. She looked at Quentin, who was nursing a broken arm but nodding slowly. She stepped down from the throne. She knelt. I swear, she whispered. She cut her palm with her own dagger. She held it out to me. I swear fealty to the Daywalker Queen. Genevieve just bent the knee. Allyssa has her army. But the Vatican has more labs, more monsters, and a lot more missiles. If you're ready for the global war, hit that like button. Genevieve's submission changed everything. When a lord kneels, the court follows. One by one, the vampires of the south, the ones who hadn't been killed by abominations, stepped forward. They cut their palms. They offered their blood. I didn't drink it. I mixed it. We filled a golden chalice from Genevieve's altar. My blood, Vincenzo's blood, and the blood of every vampire in the room. This is the new covenant, Vincenzo announced, holding the chalice aloft. We are no longer separate covens. We are no longer north and south. We are the Daywalkers. He handed the chalice to Genevieve first. Drink, he commanded, and burn the weakness away. She drank, she screamed. It wasn't a scream of pain, well, not just pain. It was the sound of a snake shedding its skin. She fell to the floor, convulsing. Her veins turned gold. Her eyes rolled back, then snapped open, burning with new amber fire. She stood up. She looked at her hands. She walked to the window. She stepped into the sun. She laughed. It was a beautiful, terrifying sound. I can feel it, she whispered. The world. I can feel the world again. The others drank. Not all survived. 3 of the older vampires, too set in their ways, too corrupted by centuries of darkness, didn't turn. They just died. Their bodies couldn't handle the evolution, but the rest. By sunset, we had an army, 400 Daywalkers, immune to sun, immune to silver, stronger than anything nature had ever designed. We have the numbers, Marcus said, looking over the ranks assembled in the garden. We have the power. What is the target? The Vatican, I said. We go to the source. The Vatican is a fortress, Genevieve warned, protected by holy wards, ancient magic. Magic doesn't stop missiles, I said, and it doesn't stop us. My phone buzzed. I knew who it was before I answered. Carolina, I said. You're making a mistake, Allyssa, she said. Her voice was tight, strained. You think you've won because you killed my prototypes. Abner was flawed. The next batch won't be. There won't be a next batch, I said. I'm coming for you. You can try, she said, but do you know what we have in the vaults? Do you know what we keep locked away beneath St. Peter's? I don't care. You should, because it's hungry, and it hates vampires more than I do. Click. She is bluffing, Vincenzo said, coming up beside me. Maybe, I said, but we can't take the chance. We attack tonight, fast, hard, before she can wake up whatever is in the vaults. Tonight, Genevieve asked. We are still recovering. We attack at dawn, I corrected. When they think we're sleeping, when they think we're weak. I looked at my army, 400 golden-eyed monsters waiting for a command. Prepare the jets, I said. We're going to Rome. Genevieve had a private jet. Of course she did. We flew through the night chasing the sunrise. The mood on the plane was tense. Vampires weren't used to flying. Being 30,000 feet in the air in a metal tube went against every survival instinct they had. Vincenzo sat across from me. He was cleaning his sword. You are quiet, he said. I'm thinking about Carolina, I admitted. She sounded scared, not of me, of what she was about to do. Desperate people do desperate things, he said. What if we're the villains? I asked. We're building an army of super vampires. We're attacking the church. From their perspective, we're the apocalypse. We are, Vincenzo said simply. To the sheep, the wolf is always the villain, but the wolf must eat. He reached across the aisle and took my hand. We are not villains, Allyssa. We are survival. The world changed the day you walked in the sun. We are just ensuring our place in it. And if we burn the world down to do it, then we build a better one from the ashes. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Approaching Italian airspace. We have company. I looked out the window. Fighter jets, 2 of them. Italian Air Force or Vatican. Unidentified aircraft, the radio squawked. You are entering restricted airspace. Divert immediately or be fired upon. Ignore them, I said. They are locking weapons. The pilot shouted. Vincenzo, I said. Can you jump? He looked at the jets. He looked at the distance, maybe 500 feet. It will be exhilarating. He stood up. He walked to the emergency exit door. Open it. The pilot depressurized the cabin. Wind roared in. Vincenzo jumped. He didn't fall, he flew. He used his cloak like wings, gliding on the air currents. He landed on the wing of the nearest fighter jet. I watched through the window. Vincenzo ripped the canopy off the jet. He grabbed the pilot. He threw him out. He had a parachute, I hoped. Vincenzo sat in the cockpit. The jet swerved, then it righted itself. He can fly a jet. Genevieve asked, stunned. He learns fast, I said. Vincenzo turned the jet. He fired on his wingman. The second jet exploded. The path was clear. Landing in 20 minutes, the pilot said, sounding like he needed a drink. We landed at a private airfield outside Rome. The army disembarked. 400 vampires in tactical gear, carrying swords and stolen rifles. It was dawn. The sun was rising over the hills. Beautiful, Marcus whispered, basking in the light. Focus, I said. The Vatican is 20 miles that way. We stole trucks, cars, buses, anything with wheels. It was a convoy of the damned. We reached the walls of the Vatican City at noon. Tourists were everywhere. They stared at us, a literal army of glowing people in black leather. Clear the square. I shouted, my voice amplified by magic. Leave now. Panic ensued. The crowd ran. The Swiss guard came out. They held halberds. They looked ridiculous against our modern weapons. Stand down, I told them. We aren't here for the Pope. We're here for the Inquisition. They didn't stand down, they charged. It was over in seconds. We didn't kill them. We just disarmed them and tossed them into the fountains. We reached the entrance to the secret archives, the door to the underground. It was sealed. massive bronze doors covered in runes. Magic, Genevieve hissed. Holy wards, we cannot touch it. I walked up to the door. I could feel the heat radiating from it. It smelled of incense and prayer. I can, I said. I placed my hand on the bronze. It burned. It seared my palm. Holy magic still hurt, but it didn't stop me. I pushed. The runes flared white. The metal groaned. Open, I commanded. The doors blasted inward. We stepped into the dark. The Vatican underground was a city unto itself. Miles of catacombs, libraries, and laboratories. We fought our way down. The resistance was heavy. Hunters with flamethrowers, priests with holy water hoses, but against daywalkers, they were nothing. We reached the deepest level, the vault. Carolina was waiting. She stood on a metal catwalk suspended over a massive, dark pit. You came, she said. She looked tired. I hoped you wouldn't. It's over, Carolina, I said. Surrender. It's not over, she said. It's just beginning. She pointed to the pit. I told you, we have something down there, something old, something hungry. She pressed a button on a console. The pit opened. A sound rose from the depths, a screeching, chittering sound that made my blood freeze. Wings. Thousands of them. And then they rose. They weren't bats, they weren't birds, they were angels, but not the kind in paintings. These were grotesque, skinless, multi-winged, covered in eyes. They radiated a holy light that burned even my daywalker eyes. The seraphim, Carolina whispered. We kept them asleep. We fed them sinners. But now they are awake. The angels swarmed. They dove into our ranks. Vampires screamed as they were torn apart. The angels didn't bite. They burned. Their touch was pure white fire. Retreat, Vincenzo shouted. We cannot fight divinity. We have to, I yelled. An angel dove for me. I swung my sword. It passed through the creature like smoke. It hit me. I flew backward, slamming into the wall. My skin sizzled. The gold light in my veins flickered. Vincenzo was there instantly. He shielded me with his body. The angel clawed his back, shredding his tactical vest, burning his skin. Go, he roared. Run, Allyssa. No. I looked at the angels. They were beautiful, terrifying, and they were made of light. Light. Daywalkers absorbed light. Vincenzo. I grabbed his arm. Don't fight them, absorb them. What? Their energy, pure energy. Drink it. He looked at me like I was crazy. Then he looked at the angel attacking us. He opened his mouth. He didn't bite. He inhaled. He pulled the light into him. The angel shrieked. Its form wavered. It was being sucked into Vincenzo like smoke into a vacuum. He swallowed it. His eyes flared white. His skin turned diamond hard. He roared. A shockwave of power exploded from him, knocking the other angels back. It works. He shouted, Feast, my children, feast on the light. The daywalkers understood. They stopped swinging swords. They started feeding. It was a frenzy, a banquet of holy fire. Carolina watched in horror. Her weapon, her ultimate doomsday device, was just lunch. Impossible, she whispered. She backed away. She ran for the exit. I didn't chase her. I was too busy eating an angel. We cleared the vault. We stood in the center of the Vatican, glowing with stolen divine power. We weren't just daywalkers anymore. We were something else, something closer to gods. Vincenzo walked to the papal throne in the audience chamber above. He sat down. This seat is comfortable, he noted. I stood beside him. The world is watching, I said. The cameras are outside. Let them watch, he said. He took my hand. Long live the Queen. The doors opened, the cameras flashed, and the war for the planet began. The Vatican tried to kill them with angels. Now the vampires have the power of heaven. What happens when the monsters become the gods? Find out in the season finale. The Vatican looked different from the throne. From down on the marble floor, it looked like a church. From up here, sitting on the seat of St. Peter, looking out over the sea of kneeling daywalkers, it looked like a fortress. It looked like an empire. They are coming, Vincenzo said. He stood beside me, one hand resting on the back of the golden chair. He wasn't wearing his tattered suit anymore. He was wearing the Pope's ceremonial robes, white silk embroidered with gold, but he wore them like armor. His eyes were burning holes in the far wall. "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. "Everyone," he said. He gestured to the massive screens we had set up in the nave, news feeds from around the world. Rome surrounded, NATO task force mobilized, nuclear option on the table. The humans weren't sending hunters this time. They weren't sending priests. They were sending armies. Tanks rolled down the Via della Conciliazione. Fighter jets screamed overhead, breaking the sound barrier, shattering the stained glass windows I hadn't already broken. "They are afraid," Vincenzo said, a cruel smile touching his lips. "Good." "They're terrified," I corrected. "There's a difference." I looked at my hands. They were glowing. The energy I had absorbed from the angel, the raw, holy fire, was still humming under my skin. It felt restless. It wanted to be used. "We have to talk to them," I said, "before the shooting starts." "Talk," Vincenzo laughed. It was a sound that made the daywalkers below flinch. "We do not talk to cattle, Allyssa. We rule them." He leaned down, his face inches from mine. His eyes were spinning vortices of gold. "We are gods now," he whispered. "Gods do not negotiate." I looked at him. I saw the man who had saved me from the pit. I saw the king who had knelt on a balcony, but I also saw something else. I saw the hunger. Not for blood, we were past that. The hunger for dominion. "Vincenzo," I said softly, "if we fight them, we kill them all, millions." "Then we kill them," he said. He straightened up, turning to address the army. "Prepare the defenses," he roared. "The humans bring iron and fire, we bring the sun." The daywalkers cheered. It was a deafening, fanatical sound. I sat on the throne, surrounded by monsters who worshipped me, and realized the terrifying truth. We had won the war against the church, but I was about to lose the war for Vincenzo's soul. The first shell hit the dome of St. Peter's at 9 o'clock. It was a warning shot, a massive 155 howitzer round that punched through the lead and stone, exploding high in the vaulted ceiling. Dust rained down on the throne. I didn't flinch. I just brushed a speck of plaster off my knee. "General Kale," I said, reading the name off the chyron on the news feed. "United Nations Coalition Commander." "A brave man," Marcus said, stepping forward. He was wearing Swiss Guard armor he had painted black. "Or a foolish one." "He gives us 1 hour to surrender," I said, "or he levels the city." "Let him try," Genevieve hissed. She was sharpening her sword on the steps of the altar. Her blonde hair was matted with dried blood, angel blood. "We ate the seraphim. What can tanks do?" "Tanks can flatten this building in 10 minutes, I said. I stood up. "I'm going out there." "No," Vincenzo said instantly. "You are the queen. You do not expose yourself." "I'm the only one they might listen to," I said. "I'm the anomaly, the bridge." "You are the target," he countered. "They want to dissect you." "They can try," I said. I walked down the steps of the dais. The daywalkers parted for me, bowing low. They looked at me with adoration that made my skin crawl. To them, I wasn't Allyssa the cleaner. I was the golden saint, the liberator. I reached the great bronze doors. I pushed them open. St. Peter's Square was empty of tourists. Instead, it was filled with tanks. Dozens of them. M1 Abrams, Leopards, Challengers. Their turrets were all pointed at me. Behind them, lines of infantry stood behind barricades. Snipers were positioned on every roof. It was enough firepower to conquer a small country. I walked out onto the steps. I was wearing my torn blue dress and the tactical vest. I held no weapon. I just stood there, glowing in the morning sun. A loudspeaker crackled. "Identify yourself," a voice boomed. "I am Allyssa," I said. I didn't shout. I projected my voice with magic, letting it roll over the square like thunder. "I speak for the daywalkers." "You are in violation of international law," the voice said. "You are occupying sovereign territory. You are classified as a hostile biothreat." "We aren't a threat unless you make us one," I said. "We just want to exist." "You ate an angel on live television," the voice replied dryly. "That tends to make people nervous." A man stepped out from behind a tank. He was older, grey-haired, wearing desert fatigues with a lot of stars on the collar. General Kale. He walked toward me. He stopped 20 feet away. He wasn't afraid. "You're the girl," he said. The one from the lab videos. I am. You look human, he noted. I was, I said. Once. And now? Now, I said, meeting his gaze. I'm the only thing standing between you and a massacre. He looked past me at the dark opening of the basilica. He could feel the eyes watching him, 400 apex predators. We have a nuke, he said quietly. Tactical yield, low fallout, designed to vaporize this square and everything in it. It won't work, I said. We eat energy. A nuke is just a big meal. He frowned. Is that a bluff? Do you want to find out? He studied me. He was calculating the odds. Surrender, he said. Come with us. Let us study you. Maybe we can find a way to reverse it. Reverse it, I laughed. General, we aren't sick. We're evolved. You're parasites, he said, his hand drifting to his sidearm. You feed on blood. You kill to survive. So do you, I said, pointing at his tanks. You just call it peacekeeping. He stiffened. I have my orders, Allyssa. Surrender or we open fire. If you shoot, I said softly, my king will kill every soldier in this square before the first shell casings hit the ground. And then he will march on Paris. Then London. Then New York. I stepped closer. I'm here to offer you a truce. Leave us roam. We will stay within the walls. We will police our own. We won't hunt humans. And what will you eat? Synthetics, I said. Animal blood, criminals, we'll figure it out. Criminals, he scoffed. So you become the judge, jury, and executioner. Better us than you, I said. He stared at me. He was wavering. He knew he couldn't win a conventional fight. I can't authorize that, he said finally. Rome is, it's Rome. Then call someone who can, I said. Too late, a voice said over his radio. Cale touched his earpiece. What? Inbound, the radio screamed. Biological payload deployed. ETA 30 seconds. Cale looked at me. His eyes went wide. I didn't order that, he said. I looked up. A drone was diving out of the clouds. It wasn't carrying a missile. It was carrying a canister. Carolina, I whispered. Take cover. Cale shouted to his men. It was too late. The canister exploded in the air above the square. It didn't release fire. It released a cloud of red dust. It drifted down like snow. It glittered in the sunlight. It touched the skin of the soldiers. Nothing happened. It touched Cale. Nothing. It touched me. Pain, not the burning of the sun, not the sting of silver. It was a psychic scream. It felt like someone had driven a spike into the fear center of my brain and twisted it. I fell to my knees, clawing at my face. Allyssa. Vincenzo roared from the doorway. He ran out. He ran into the cloud. The dust hit him. He didn't scream. He froze. His gold eyes turned. Wrong. The gold darkened. It swirled with red, with black, with madness. Vincenzo. I gasped, fighting the pain. He looked at me. He didn't see me. He saw a threat. He saw prey. He roared. It wasn't a noble sound. It was the sound of a beast that had forgotten its name. He turned to the soldiers. Kill, he snarled. And the massacre began. If you thought the angels were bad, wait until you see what the red dust does to a vampire god. Make sure you're subscribed because the final battle is about to begin and there are no good guys left. The red dust wasn't a poison. It was a stimulant. It targeted the Daywalker gene, the specific mutation Gideon had isolated. It took the aggression, the predatory instinct, and dialed it up to 1,000. It stripped away the humanity. It stripped away the logic. It left only the hunger. Vincenzo hit the front line of the infantry like a cannonball. He didn't use a sword. He used his hands. He tore through Kevlar and ceramic plates like wet cardboard. He ripped tanks open to get to the crew inside. The soldiers fired. Thousands of rounds hit him. They did nothing. He didn't even flinch. He just laughed, a wet, gurgling sound, and kept killing. Vincenzo, stop. I screamed. I tried to stand up. The dust was in my lungs. It was whispering to me. Kill them. They hurt you. They want to cage you. Break them. I bit my tongue. The pain cleared my head for a second. No, I told the voice. I am the queen. I do not break. I looked at the basilica. The daywalkers were pouring out. They had smelled the dust. They wanted it. Marcus ran out, his eyes wide and wild. Genevieve followed, her nails elongated into 10-inch claws. They hit the square. It was a meat grinder. General Kale was shouting orders, but his voice was drowned out by the screams. A daywalker landed on his tank. It tore the hatch off. "Help me!" Kale shouted, looking at me. I moved. I fought the rage in my blood. I forced my body to obey. I jumped. I landed on the tank next to the daywalker, a young vampire I'd recruited from the club. "Get back," I ordered. He looked at me. His eyes were spinning pools of madness. "Food," he hissed. He lunged at me, my own subject, my own soldier. I didn't have a choice. I grabbed his throat. I squeezed. His neck snapped. He fell off the tank. I looked at my hands. I had just killed one of my own. "Allyssa," Kale yelled. He was pulling his sidearm. "Don't shoot," I said. "It won't work." "What is happening?" he demanded. "What is this dust?" "It's a frenzy agent," I said, watching Vincenzo tear the turret off a tank and throw it into a building. "Carolina," she weaponized the bloodlust. "How do we stop them?" "You can't," I said. "You have to run." "I can't run," Kale said grimly. "This is the last line of defense. If they break out of the Vatican, they hit Rome." He was right. If 400 berserker vampires got into the city, millions would die. "Containment," I said. "We need to contain them." "How? They're invincible." "Not invincible," I said. I looked at Vincenzo. He was covered in blood, panting, looking for his next target. "Just lost." I looked at the Vatican walls. They were high, thick. "We seal the square," I said. "We lock them in with us." "With us?" Kale asked. "I'm staying," I said. "Someone has to wake the king." We coordinated. Kale ordered his tanks to form a barricade at the exits of the square. They turned their guns inward, creating a wall of steel and fire. I ran to the main gates. Vincenzo was there. He was trying to break through the tank line. He was hammering on the hull of an Abrams, making the 50-ton machine slide backward with every blow. "Vincenzo!" I shouted. He turned. He looked at me. The recognition in his eyes was gone. The love was gone. "Traitor," he hissed. The word was garbled, animalistic. "I'm not a traitor," I said, walking toward him. The dust swirled around us. "I'm your consort, remember." "Consort," he repeated. He tilted his head. "Property." He lunged. I wasn't ready. He hit me. We flew backward, crashing into the central fountain. The stone shattered. Water sprayed everywhere. He pinned me down. His hand wrapped around my throat. He was so strong, stronger than me. He had the strength of the ancient king, plus the daywalker boost, plus the angel energy. I couldn't break his grip. "Vincenzo," I choked out. "Please." He bared his fangs. "Hungry," he whispered. He leaned down to bite me, to tear my throat out. I couldn't fight him physically. I had to fight him mentally. I reached for the bond. It was a chaotic mess, static, screaming. The red dust had scrambled the connection, but the thread was still there, buried deep. I grabbed it. I yanked. I didn't send pain. I didn't send fear. I sent a memory. The pit. The first night. Him offering me freedom. Me choosing him. The library. Him dying. Me feeding him. The balcony. Him kneeling. I pushed the memories into his mind like a spear. Vincenzo flinched. He groaned, shaking his head. "Get out," he snarled. "Get out of my head." "No," I gasped. "Look at me. Look at what you're doing." He looked down. He saw his hand on my throat. He saw the fear in my eyes. For a second, the gold in his eyes cleared. "Allyssa," he whispered. He pulled his hand back as if he'd been burned. What have I done?" "It's the dust," I said, sitting up, rubbing my neck. "It's a drug. Fight it." He clutched his head. "The noise, the hunger, it is too loud." Around us, the battle raged. Daywalkers were ripping soldiers apart. Soldiers were firing uselessly. "We have to stop them," I said. "Vincenzo, command them. You're the king." He stood up. He tried to shout an order. "Stop." Nobody listened. The dust was stronger than the hierarchy. They were animals now. "They cannot hear me," he said, despair in his voice. "I have lost them." "Then we have to put them down," I said. "They are my children," he said. "My subjects." "They are monsters," I said gently. "And right now, so are we." I picked up my sword from the fountain. "Carolina is watching," I said. "She wants us to be monsters. She wants the world to see us slaughtering humans so she has an excuse to nuke the city." I looked at the sky. The drone was still there, watching. We have to end this, I said, before they drop the big one. How? Vincenzo asked. We cannot kill 400 daywalkers. No, I said, but we can kill the signal. The signal. The dust, I said. It's biological, but it's resonating, like the cardinals chanting. It's vibrating in our blood. I looked at the drone. Carolina is controlling it. She's broadcasting a frequency that activates the dust. If we destroy the drone, the signal stops, the madness ends. It is high, Vincenzo said, looking up. Too high to jump. Not for us, I said. We ate an angel, remember? I grabbed his hand. Combined strength, I said. Throw me. What? Throw me at the drone. He looked at me. He smiled. A flicker of the old Vincenzo. You are insane. I know, do it. He braced himself. I stepped into his cupped hands. Fly, my queen, he said. He heaved. I launched into the air. It felt like being shot out of a cannon. The wind screamed in my ears. The square fell away. The tanks looked like toys. I shot upward. 500 feet, 600. The drone was right there. A sleek black predator in the sky. I reached the apex of my arc. I swung my sword. I cleaved the drone in half. Explosion. Fire engulfed me. Metal shrapnel hit my vest. I fell. I fell through the smoke and the fire. I crashed onto the cobblestones of the square. I rolled, creating a furrow in the stone. I lay there, groaning. Everything hurt. Even with the angel power, falling 600 feet sucks. Silence. The screaming stopped. The growling stopped. I sat up. The daywalkers were standing still. They looked confused. They looked at their bloody hands. They looked at the dead soldiers. The madness was gone. It worked, I whispered. Vincenzo ran to me. He helped me up. You did it, he said. The signal is cut. We looked around. The slaughter was terrible. Half the human soldiers were dead. A quarter of the daywalkers were dead, killed by each other in the frenzy. General Kale climbed out of his tank. He looked at the carnage. He looked at us. Is it over? He asked. The madness is over, I said. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out. The screen was cracked, but it worked. Carolina. Impressive, she said. She didn't sound angry. She sounded resigned. You figured it out. It's over, Carolina, I said. We stopped the signal. We stopped the war. You stopped the battle, she corrected. But you didn't stop the war. What do you mean? The red dust wasn't just a frenzy agent, Allyssa, she said. It was a marker. A marker? Targeting paint, she said, for the kinetic rods. I froze. Rods. Project Thor, she said. Tungsten rods dropped from orbit. No radiation, no fallout, just pure kinetic impact, enough to vaporize a city block. She paused. They're already falling, Allyssa. Impact in 2 minutes. You're going to destroy Rome, I whispered. To kill us. To save humanity, she said. Goodbye, Daywalker. Click, I looked at Vincenzo. We have 2 minutes, I said. To run, he asked. No, I said. We can't outrun gravity. I looked at the sky. I couldn't see them yet, but I knew they were coming. Telephone poles made of tungsten, falling at Mach 10. We have to catch them, I said. Catch them. Vincenzo stared at me. Allyssa, that is impossible. We are daywalkers, I said. We are angel eaters. We don't do impossible anymore. I looked at the army, my army. Daywalkers, I shouted. Listen to me. They turned, they saw me. Death is coming from the sky. I pointed up. We have one chance. We have to combine our power, all of us. How? Genevieve asked, stepping forward. The bond, I said. The marriage of bone. It binds Vincenzo and me. But the blood of the covenant binds all of us. I grabbed Vincenzo's hand. I grabbed Genevieve's hand. Link up, I ordered. Form a chain, everyone. They hesitated. Then they moved. They grabbed hands. A massive ring of vampires surrounding the obelisk in the center of the square. Focus, I said. Focus on the light inside you, the sun, the angel. I closed my eyes. I pulled on the bond. I didn't pull power from them. I pushed power to them, and they pushed back. A feedback loop. 400 vampires all amplifying each other. The energy built. It grew hot. It grew blinding. A pillar of golden light erupted from the square. It shot into the sky, a massive beam of pure magical force. Hold it. I screamed. Hold it. I saw them, 3 streaks of fire in the sky. The rods, they hit the beam. Impact. The world turned white. The noise was beyond sound. It was a pressure that tried to flatten us. I felt the weight of the rods, the kinetic energy of a meteor strike. I pushed back. Sens pushed. Genevieve pushed. Every daywalker pushed. We screamed, we burned, our blood boiled, but we held. The rods slowed, they fought the light. And then, they disintegrated. The magic tore the tungsten apart, vaporized it, turned it into harmless dust. The beam faded, we collapsed. The square was silent. Snow was falling, but it wasn't snow. It was tungsten dust. I lay on the ground, staring at the sky. It was blue, clear, beautiful. We were alive. Vincenzo crawled over to me. He looked wrecked, but he was smiling. "We caught them," he whispered. "We caught them," I agreed. I sat up. General Kale was standing by his tank. He was staring at us. His soldiers were staring at us. They didn't raise their guns. They dropped them. They knelt, not in surrender, in awe. They had seen a miracle. They had seen monsters save the city. My phone buzzed. I picked it up. "Carolina?" I asked. Silence. Then a new voice, a man's voice. "This is the President of the United States," the voice said. "Carolina has been relieved of command." I stood up. Vincenzo stood with me. "Mr. President," I said. "We saw the feed," he said. "We saw what you did. You saved Rome." "We saved ourselves," I said. "Rome just got lucky." "We want to talk," he said. "No more missiles, no more dust. A treaty." "A treaty," I repeated. I looked at Vincenzo. I looked at my army. "We're listening." The treaty was signed on the steps of St. Peter's Basilica. It wasn't a secret meeting in a dark room. It was broadcast live to 6 billion people. On one side of the table, the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Italy, and General Kale representing the UN coalition. On the other side, me, Vincenzo, Genevieve. We didn't wear suits. We wore what we had fought in, battle-scarred armor, torn clothes, and the undeniable aura of predators who had just eaten an apocalypse. "The terms are simple," I said, sliding the document across the table. The President adjusted his glasses. He looked nervous. He kept glancing at Vincenzo's hands, which were resting on the table, claws slightly extended. "You want sovereignty," the President said, "over the Vatican City." "The Vatican is empty," I said. "The priests fled. The Pope is in exile. We claimed it by right of conquest." "It is a holy site," the Prime Minister protested. "We are daywalkers," Vincenzo said, his voice smooth and terrifying. "We walk in the light. We saved your city from orbital bombardment. I think God approves." "You want immunity," General Kale said, reading the document. "For all daywalkers. No hunting, no experimentation." "And in return," I said, "we offer protection." "Protection from what?" the President asked. "You killed the Coven. You destroyed the abominations." "From the things in the dark that aren't vampires," I said. "The world is older than you think, Mr. President. There are things waking up in the deep places, things that make us look like puppies." I leaned forward. "We are the only thing that can fight them. We are the immune system of the planet. Let us do our job." The leaders exchanged looks. They knew the truth. They had seen the satellite feeds. They knew they couldn't kill us. "And the blood?" Kale asked quietly. "What will you eat?" "Synthetic," I said. "We have the formula. We can manufacture it. No human hunting. If a daywalker kills a human, we execute them ourselves." I looked at Genevieve. She nodded grimly. She was the enforcer now. The President picked up a pen. His hand shook. "If you break this treaty," he started. "If we break it," Vincenzo said, smiling, "you can drop another tungsten rod on us. Maybe next time it will work." The President signed. That night we stood on the balcony overlooking the square. The tanks were gone. The soldiers were gone. In their place were thousands of people, humans, vampires. They were lighting candles. They were singing. Some were afraid, some were hopeful, but they were all watching us. "It is done," Vincenzo said. He put his arm around my waist. "We are legitimate. We are a nation." "We are," I said. I leaned against him. I was tired, bone-deep tired. The adrenaline of the war was fading, leaving only the quiet hum of the bond. "You look sad," he said. "I'm not sad," I said. "I'm just wondering." "Wondering what?" "If I'm still Allyssa," I said. "The girl who cleaned floors, or if she died in the pit." Vincenzo turned me to face him. He took my face in his hands. "That girl died," he said gently, "but she was reborn, stronger, better." He kissed my forehead. "You are the queen, Allyssa. You are the daywalker. You saved the world." "I saved us," I corrected. "Is there a difference?" I looked at the city, lights twinkling in the darkness. "No," I said. "I guess there isn't." I looked at him, my king, my partner, my monster. "So," I said, "what do we do now?" He smiled. It was the same smile he had given me in the pit all those nights ago, predatory, amused. "Now," he said, "now we live forever." Peace on paper is easy. Peace on the street is hell. 3 days after the treaty was signed, Rome was burning again, not from missiles, from Molotov cocktails. "Another safe house attacked," Marcus reported, throwing a charred helmet onto the war room table. "This time in Trastevere, human radicals. They call themselves the Dawn Guard." "Humans?" Vincenzo asked, pacing the room. "The treaty forbids us from hunting them if we retaliate." "If we don't retaliate," Genevieve snapped, "we look weak. My vampires are restless, Vincenzo. They stepped into the sun for you. They fought angels for you. Now they are being hunted by teenagers with gasoline, and you tell them to stand down." She slammed her hand on the table. "The treaty is a cage." I sat on the throne, watching them argue. They were both right. That was the problem. "It's not just humans," I said quietly. The room went silent. "What do you mean?" Vincenzo asked. "The North," I said. "The covens we haven't visited yet. Berlin, Moscow. They heard about the treaty. They heard we agreed to stop hunting." I pulled up a holographic map, stolen Vatican tech. Red dots were appearing across Europe. "They're calling us traitors," I said. "They say the daywalkers are pets of the humans. They're mobilizing." "Let them come," Marcus growled. "We have the sun." "They have numbers," I said. "Thousands of them. If the old covens unite against us, and the humans are attacking us from the inside." "We are fighting a war on 2 fronts, Vincenzo finished. He looked at me. "We need to make an example," he said. "Not of the humans. That breaks the treaty. We make an example of the vampires." "Berlin," I said. "The Iron Chancellor. He's leading the resistance." "We go tonight," Vincenzo said. "We cut the head off the snake." We didn't take the army. We took a squad, me, Vincenzo, Genevieve, Marcus, and 6 elite daywalkers. We halo jumped into Berlin at 2 a.m. The Iron Chancellor's stronghold was a brutalist concrete bunker disguised as a nightclub. It was impenetrable to normal assault. But we weren't normal. We landed on the roof. I used the silver sword to carve a hole in the reinforced concrete like I was cutting a cake. We dropped into the VIP lounge. The music stopped. The Chancellor, a massive vampire with skin like granite, stood up from his table. He was surrounded by 50 guards. "The traitor king," he sneered, "and his human whore." Vincenzo didn't speak. He just walked forward. The guards fired. Bullets. Incendiary rounds. Vincenzo caught the bullets. He walked through the fire. He looked bored. "Kneel," he said. "Never," the Chancellor roared. He drew a massive battle axe. Vincenzo sighed. He moved. He didn't draw a weapon. He grabbed the axe mid-swing. He snapped the haft. He grabbed the Chancellor by the throat and lifted him one-handed. "You cling to the dark," Vincenzo whispered, "because you are afraid of what you see in the light." He didn't kill him. He dragged him to the window. "Allyssa," he said. I pulled the heavy blackout curtains down. Streetlights flooded the room. It wasn't sunlight, but it was bright enough to make the old bloods hiss. "Look at him," Vincenzo commanded the room. He held the Chancellor. He bit his own wrist. He forced his golden blood down the Chancellor's throat. "Turn," Vincenzo ordered. The Chancellor screamed. His veins turned gold. He convulsed. He didn't die, he changed. He stood up panting. His eyes snapped open. "Gold. What is this?" He gasped. He looked at the streetlights. They didn't hurt his eyes. He looked at his hands. Power, Vincenzo said. Freedom. He looked at the 50 guards. Who else wants to be free? 49 of them knelt. We didn't have to kill them. We converted them. The resistance didn't end with a battle. It ended with a mass baptism. We returned to Rome victorious. We had secured Europe, but Rome was still bleeding. The Dawn Guard riots had escalated. A mob of 5,000 humans was marching on the Vatican. They had torches. They had guns. They had signs that said God hates monsters. They were at the gates. They are going to breach, Marcus said, watching the monitors. We have to engage. They are civilians, I said. If we slaughter 5,000 humans on live TV, the treaty is void. The nukes come back. Then what do we do? Genevieve asked. Let them burn us. No, I said. We go out there. Without weapons. Without weapons. I walked out to the gates. Vincenzo walked with me. We wore simple clothes, no armor, no swords. We opened the gates. The mob roared. A Molotov cocktail flew at me. Vincenzo caught it. The bottle shattered in his hand. The fire washed over his skin. He didn't burn. He just looked at the flame, then snuffed it out with his fist. The mob went quiet. Go home, I said. My voice was amplified by the acoustics of the square. Monster, a man shouted. He raised a hunting rifle. He aimed at my chest. Don't, I whispered. He fired. I didn't catch the bullet. I let it hit me. It struck my chest. It flattened against my skin. It fell to the ground with a clink. I picked it up. Is that all you have? I asked. Bullets, fire, hate. I walked into the crowd. They parted for me. They were terrified, yes, but they were also confused. Monsters were supposed to attack. Monsters were supposed to die. I stopped in front of the shooter. He was shaking. We saved this city, I said. We caught the sky for you. I placed the flattened bullet in his hand. We aren't your enemy, I said. We're your shield. I turned my back on him. I walked back to the gates. He didn't shoot again. The mob didn't cheer, but they didn't attack. They slowly, quietly began to disperse. That was dangerous, Vincenzo murmured as the gates closed. It was politics, I said, and it worked. But not everyone was convinced. The next day, a daywalker was caught, a young one. He had lost control. He had drained a human shopkeeper in a back alley. The treaty was clear. If a daywalker kills a human, we execute them ourselves. Marcus brought him to the throne room. The boy was crying. He was 17. I was hungry, he wept. The synthetic stuff. It doesn't taste right. I didn't mean to kill him. The cameras were rolling. The human leaders were watching via satellite link. This was the test. If I let him live, the treaty broke. If I killed him, I was killing a child I had promised to protect. Vincenzo handed me the sword. He is yours, he said softly. You are the queen. I looked at the boy. I looked at the camera. I am sorry, I whispered. Please, the boy begged. My queen. I didn't hesitate. I couldn't. I swung the sword. It was clean, instant. I turned to the camera. My face was stone. Justice is served, I said. The feed cut. I dropped the sword. I walked to the back room. I sat on the floor and shook. Vincenzo found me. He sat beside me. He didn't speak. He just held me while I cried gold tears for the boy I had murdered to save the world. That was the moment I truly became a ruler, not when I fought the angels. Not when I walked in the sun, but when I learned that the crown is heavy because it is made of the bones of the people you failed. New York City. The club was loud. The music was heavy bass that vibrated in my chest. I sat in the VIP booth watching the dance floor. Humans and vampires were dancing together. Not hiding, not hunting, just dancing. A young vampire girl, newly turned, a daywalker recruit, was laughing with a human boy. She showed her fangs. He didn't run. He kissed her. It wasn't perfect. There were still hate groups. There were still rogue vampires, but it was a start. Your drink, my queen. Vincenzo slid into the booth beside me. He handed me a glass of synthetic blood, vintage 2024, infused with cherry flavor. Stop calling me that in public, I teased, taking a sip. Force of habit. He kissed my neck. The council meeting went well. Genevieve is complaining about the zoning laws in London, I said, and Marcus wants to buy a tank, but otherwise fine. Good. He leaned back, putting his arm around me. He looked content. The boredom that had plagued him for centuries was gone. Running a global empire was stressful, but it wasn't boring. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out. Unknown number. I frowned. Hello. Allyssa, a voice said. It was distorted, digital. Who is this? You don't know me, the voice said. But I know you. I know what you are. I'm the queen of the Daywalkers, I said. Everyone knows what I am. No, the voice said. They know what you became. They don't know what you were. I froze. What are you talking about? The font of origins, the voice said. It wasn't magic. It was technology, ancient technology, left by the ones who came before. Who? The Skyfallers, the voice whispered, and they're coming back. Static, the line went dead. I stared at the phone. Allyssa, Vincenzo asked, what is it? Is it the church? I looked at him. I looked at the dancers. I looked at the peace we had fought so hard to build. No, I said, putting the phone away. It's not the church. I stood up. I smoothed my dress. It's the sequel. Vincenzo laughed. He stood up with me. Then let us go meet it. He took my hand. We walked out of the club into the night, ready for whatever darkness came next, because we were the Daywalkers, and we weren't afraid of the dark anymore. The end. Thank you for following Allyssa and Vincenzo on this journey. From the pit to the throne, you've been with us every step of the way. If you want to see what happens when the Skyfallers arrive, make sure you're subscribed. The Marriage of Bones saga is over. The Skyfall saga is just beginning.